and that's when YouTube was not working. So, and then I saw that it's like 40 minutes, so I was like, it's worth this. I had it started, but now I'm just sort of like looking at the mission breakdowns.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be okay.
I think so too. Okay. Okay.
Say it. Say it.
We're back. We're back. Welcome.
Every year we play one video game from the Halo franchise, and then we turn off our computers for the rest of the year.
We go back into slumber, like Master Chief at the end of Halo 3. Wake me when it's time to play Halo again.
Finally, I can sleep now.
Welcome to the Infinite Scale Podcast Network. We're doing co-op Compatriots again. Just when you thought it was dead forever, here it is, resurrected from the grave, slimy and moldy from a year of decomposition.
Much like the Halo franchise itself until this year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that might have been more than that was like a few years.
Well, I was saying it was resurrected and power washed.
True. Yes. Yeah. They really gave it a fresh coat of paint. Yeah, we're back. It's December 11th, 2021. Notably about 4 or 5 days after the release of Halo Infinite, which neither of us have played.
Is the campaign out?
The campaign came out, yeah, like earlier this week. I was traveling, so.
Have you read any opinions online, or
people seem to like it?
Okay.
People seem to like it. I haven't tried it yet, but there seems to be a lot of positivity, which I'm happy. I'm happy that that's the case. So.
Yeah, I like when games are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'll play this one.
Yeah, fuck it.
Do we know if this has co-op yet? I know we've talked about this before, but I've completely forgotten. Did they say if this was going to have co-op?
So it doesn't at the moment. They are adding in co-op in about 6 months, which hey,
well, I'll be dead by then, so
we'll either all be dead or we won't have played the rest of the games to catch up anyway. So we still have I'm getting ahead. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So this is Halo 3 ODST. We've played Halo 3 ODST. This was your first time playing it.
Mm-hmm.
This was my 10th time playing it. This game's great.
I didn't know it was your 10th time.
This game's great.
Now I'm a little nervous to be harsh in this.
Listeners at home can't see my face, but I just put on an extremely concerned look because this man just threatened to be harsh to maybe the best Halo game.
Ooh.
Maybe.
I might get kicked off this podcast
other than the first one. When we're done with this exercise of playing through all the Halo games, we're gonna then stack rank them.
Yeah, I would be interested in doing that. Yeah.
So, Halo 3 ODST, second to last Bungie developed Halo game. It came out a couple years after Halo 3. Halo 3 was a 2007 release, and ODST was a 2009 release, so almost exactly 2 years later. Developed by Bungie for the Xbox 360 originally, but we played the PC release of the Master Chief Collection like we have been doing lately. I think that's what we did for Halo 3 as well.
I read online that this game was originally meant to be DLC, or at least there are I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know if you know more about that, but I want to see when was it announced? Do you know off the top of your head?
Um, yeah,
Let's see.
so it was I don't know off the top of my head. It's funny because I remember like being a part of the zeitgeist for this thing because Halo 3 was like the biggest shit that had come out in a really long time. Like
Yep,
people, I mean, if you
I
were the
played a
right,
shit ton of three.
yeah, I mean, if you were the, I played a lot of 2 online as well, but if you were the right age bracket for 3 when it came out, I mean, it was like full on cultural zeitgeist material. Like Halo 3 was, your friends were just playing multiplayer all the time. Didn't matter, like it was like a friends list full of people just playing one game. It was crazy. I don't, this was maybe one of the last times such a thing would happen in our lives.
Yeah, I was more invested in the multiplayer than the story. Even though I had been playing the Halo games for a while. I was pretty young when Halo 1 came out, so I didn't play it till a bit later. But yeah, I was mostly playing Halo 3's multiplayer. Same with Halo 2. But yeah, yeah. I didn't get around to this one. I don't remember what happened. Maybe I got a PlayStation at the time or something and I was into other games.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
quite remember.
the funny thing about ODST is I feel like a lot of people were interested in its release, but it didn't have the same impact that a lot of other Halo games had, which I think is a shame, because it's, well, we can get into that maybe a little bit, but to me, this game is definitely has a lot of elements that make it more structurally interesting than other Halo games, in my opinion. Um, not all of,
ODST was announced in 2008 with the Keep It Clean trailer. Sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt
no,
you.
no, please, yeah, that's good. That's good to know because I hadn't, yeah, I hadn't seen anything. Uh, I don't recall really the lead up to this game very very vividly. I remember the original intent was for it to be DLC for Halo 3, and then they kind of spun it off into its own thing. But it wasn't like a full priced game. It was still only, it was like $30 or $40 at launch. But they just pressed it onto a disc. It was essentially a Halo 3 DLC. It ran on the same engine, and for all intents and purposes looked pretty much identical visually. Technically anyway, with the exception of obviously like a lot of artistic reinterpretations of things. Maybe like I feel like they really went out of their way to make like the rainy, you know, mood of the city kind of reflected. I don't know. Like I feel like if this exact scene was in Halo 3, it would have looked a lot different. You know what I mean? Even though the assets are the same, it's like they put a filter pass on everything.
This
Um,
game has more atmosphere than any of the others, in my opinion. Like just like the music and the visual styles, like what you're saying. It's just like yeah, it has a very different overall feel to it. A lot of the things do end up feeling the same later on, but I just feel like yeah, the visuals and sound and everything, it's very different experience. Um, yeah, and I really like it, honestly.
it's got a good style.
Yeah. It's like a smoky cigar room. Quote by Jeff Gerstmann there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
The smoky
Um,
cigar room of Halo games.
so ODST, by nature of the title, you are not a Spartan. This is the only Halo game where you don't play as a Spartan, I guess, but unfortunately they didn't lean into that difference enough because it's it's you can pretty much do everything Master Chief can do, or any
I
other
agree.
Spartan for that matter.
Yeah, for sure.
I imagine that was probably an aspect of Bungie sitting down and going, we've we've just released one of the world's most popular video games of all time. Can we alienate all those fans by making this game totally different? And it seems like the answer that they went with is no, because this game it plays pretty similarly to other Halo games. Um, I think it's worth noting that we played this on heroic, and it was still pretty easy. Um, I think heroic, I guess for Halo people, and including the developers, is often considered like the default difficulty, like the way the game was designed to be played.
Mm.
And in this case, I think that holds true. It does. It never really feels unfair at any point, but it doesn't present a challenge like I expected. Like there were moments where we would die a couple of times, but there was never really like an intense difficulty spike or anything. I think the one thing that's interesting is just how much damage the brutes in particular can soak up in this game on heroic.
Yeah, I was gonna say I kind of regret that we did that. I was gonna get into it later, but one of my like negatives with this is that bullet sponginess. I think that, I mean, they're kind of limited in what they can do, and it's a decently like old game at this point. I don't really know like what other methods like shooters use to break up difficulty, but the you just run out of ammo so much, and you don't really feel like you're doing a whole lot of damage. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would have. I'm kind of like reading right now to see if like what's different between the different like difficulties. If it's like more enemies or whatnot, but the bullet sponginess was kind of irritating at times.
I think they were really leaning into the types of weapons that you use really matter, because the weapons as an ODST that you start with, being the kind of suppressed pistol and the silenced like SMG, are pretty pretty like weak caliber. I remember thinking I feel like I used the pistol a lot more, because those one shot headshots with that pistol are like really satisfying, but also really effective at like a certain range, like I'd say medium to medium long. But
Mm.
like, I would say it's not really a satisfying or suitable weapon for close range combat. And then the SMG is pretty good at like anything shorter than, like maybe 10 feet away. But getting beyond that, you may as well just be like cursing at them for how much damage it's doing. So, um, yeah, it's. I think that like starting with those weapons in particular leads to um like I would say neither of those weapons are particularly effective against brutes until or maybe the SMG is once you get really close up, but then when you're close up they're doing a ton of damage to you also, and you are slightly weaker in this game than you would be as like Master Chief in Halo 3. It feels like, anyway, it feels like your shields go down faster. So
Definitely.
yeah, it leads to I think that leads to this game being pretty satisfying for me, which is like, in a lot of cases, I guess I guess we're kind of like spinning a little bit out of control here as far as like the topics, but structurally this game is interesting because there's like an open world segment at night, like a hub
Hmm.
world kind of thing. And it seems like in a lot of instances where, normally as Master Chief, you would just blow through all those enemies, you're more incentivized to sneak around them or find a way past them without engaging them, um, to kind of conserve ammunition and prevent yourself from um, potentially getting killed, because in a lot of cases there will be a bunch of them. They're more, they're better equipped than you. um, yeah, I sort of like that. I get maybe the frustration, but also sponginess is kind of just a Halo thing. And in um like there are certain weapons that are more effective against the brutes. Like if you can get a carbine, like the alien carbine rifle, the Covenant, like it's like the purple thing that shoots the green. You know what I'm talking about? The single shot.
Yeah, I was going for that pretty much any time that I could find one or get more ammo. like midway into the experience, I really started avoiding like automatic weapons. It just wasn't particularly fun just emptying your whole clip into a brute and then reloading and having to empty another one to get them down. So yeah, I was going for the carbine a lot. I found myself looking for snipers and the alien sniper a little bit more
Sure.
often.
Yeah.
Uh the beam rifle, I think. Is that what it's
Y-
called?
It is. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think they want to incentivize you to switch weapons pretty frequently. I still felt like the default weapons were pretty satisfying to use depending on the situation, but I think the real reason why this game to me is in a lot of ways better than some of the other Halo games is that the ratio of good to bad missions is like one of the best in the franchise. Like
Mm.
there's really only one bad mission that I can think of. Unfortunately, it's the last mission in the game, but that's often the case with Halo games anyway. And usually they have at least 2 to 3 bad missions. So I
It's
don't know.
really bizarre, actually. That the part that you're talking about, I brought up the fact that this was considered DLC before,
Yeah,
and I was reading some quotes. I think their idea was that, oh, they have enough content for it to be a standalone game. I'm not sure about that actually. There that portion is like obnoxious. Uh, there's some things like that where it's like, no, this I actually think that this would have been a better experience if because I almost don't believe that that was in there before they decided that it would be a full experience. That might be incorrect. I mean, I don't know like the facts of it, but that felt like padding. I don't know if you felt that way, but um, that area is pretty terrible. Um, but overall, I do agree with you. I think that like the contrast of like missions and stuff in this is like better and more interesting than a lot of the games. But I would be curious to know. I guess we'll never know, but I'd be curious to know if there was like stuff added to this that pushed it to being a full experience in
well,
their eyes,
I
at
mean,
least.
I think it was more like they really just um I mean, if you consider in the 360 days what could be considered DLC,
Mm.
um from everything to like file size to amount of content to like I don't know, consider like how, you'd have to download this and install it and then where, are you going to run it from the Halo 3 main, menu? Are you going to like how does all this stuff integrate? I think it's easy to it's easy to forget that back then DLC was such a like weirdly modular experience. It didn't really integrate seamlessly in a lot of cases. Um
Mm.
and it was messy and players weren't really used to it, you know. I mean 2009 people were getting better, but I mean DLC wasn't even really a thing. I mean there's a reason people always make fun of horse armor in Oblivion. It's because it was like one of the first instances people remember of like paid content, being downloaded into an existing game, and it was something so superfluous.
Yeah,
um
I didn't play Skyrim, but I have similar. I remember similar memes for Operation Anchorage and all of the Fallout 3 stuff that came out around that same time, I think, probably 2009. Um, Maybe a little bit earlier, but yeah. But those areas were kind of big, I feel like. I don't know.
Yeah, they were
Um,
big, but I mean they were at the most, I don't know, a few hours. Well, so let's go like this. So what ODST added, or what it brought to the table, I guess, was it included the campaign. It introduced Firefight, which was
mm,
the co-op wave-based survival mode that we didn't play in this case, but is pretty fun. And um, that was a 4-person thing, I believe. And then it added new multiplayer maps, if I remember correctly. So it did find a way to basically integrate with Halo 3 multiplayer, and it added new maps and included some of the weapons introduced in ODST.
oh, you're
Um,
right. I'm kind of considering the campaign in a vacuum. I should have considered that. So, there is more content there, so it makes sense that it would be
Yeah,
standalone.
and I mean it wasn't a full priced game either, you know. So it was it was I think at the time it seemed like a good value. I mean, you know, it's sort of like remember like you know, it doesn't maybe reach the level of something like the Orange Box, which was maybe the best value in video games at any point, although, you know, half of the content in that thing was old. But um
Yeah. That's like a very special thing too, I feel like.
yeah.
That's a very rare case.
Yeah, I ODST to me I'm a quality over quantity person anytime, and I think the quality of some of the missions in this thing are stupendous. So maybe we'll start going through it and we can see. Well, I guess you know, give me like your like initial rating. Like what are we? Let's set the tone here. Like how mad do I
Mm.
have to be at you for the rest of this? How combative do you want me to be?
I feel like we should actually just go like one by one because I maybe as we talk about things I'll smooth over on it a bit. But yeah, mm, I don't know how I feel about the initial rating thing with this one.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess
You don't
we'll.
want to be mad through the whole talk.
I mean, you know, this is just our relationship. Honestly, anytime I speak to you,
That's
I'm just
fine.
really mad.
Oh
Uh,
my god.
okay. So ODST opens with a text crawl, which I think is pretty funny. Basically setting the scene for what's happening here. Tells you a little bit about the how bad humanity is getting their ass kicked in the war against the Covenant, and setting the stage for you know, New Mombasa, I guess, as an environment. Um, yeah, at this point, this game basically takes place kind of alongside Halo 2 in some ways. Um, Essentially, in that portion of in that portion of Halo 2 where you're at New Mombasa and the ship jumps into hyperspace in the middle of the city.
Hmm.
Um, that is the instance that the at that moment ODST is beginning. So and then it basically, you know, just takes place all across the city throughout the next, I don't know, what would you say, like day or so, um, roughly 24 hours maybe. Um, yeah, and you play as a guy just named the Rookie, who's new to this squad, and they really lean into like the squad dynamics a lot. Like they go out of their way to try to characterize um, each and every member of the squad pretty. I wouldn't say like robustly. They're all like kind of like caricatures of people that you may know, but like, you know, they pick a character trait for this person and they make it endearing, and they really kind of, you know, start to layer in like just how much this squad is like getting to know each other, and starting like, you know, how much they care about each other even though they may not be, you know, best friends or whatever at the start. Because what's interesting is, um you know, in the opening cutscene they establish the squad as together, and then when they bring in the captain, uh, who his code name is Dare. It's worth noting that Nathan Fillion is like the kind of main, I don't know, voice throughout this campaign, I guess. Gunnery Sergeant Buck, who shows up later in Halo 5, you know, they're kind of discussing the state of things, and Dare's like, oh, replacements, like implying that his squad is they're all recently brought together, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and he's like, yeah, I mean, who isn't in this war? Like everybody's dying all the time. So it's interesting to know that they haven't really worked together very much, but they seems like everybody grows pretty close over the course of this, you know, short span of time in this campaign, I guess. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
they gave all of the writers assigned viewing of Starship Troopers and aliens.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, it's funny because I don't think any of the I guess like if I'm trying to map archetypes onto people, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like anybody falls into like an old school like this is this person from Starship Troopers or this is this
Oh
person
no.
from
Y-
but
Yeah.
you
I
know what I
don't think
mean?
that they map onto anybody. I just feel like the intended dynamic is there.
For sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're everybody's got like a kind of playful disdain for each other. Um
Also, Nathan Fillion's character, everybody says that he looks like the voice actor. I think that he looks more like Zach Woods. Uh, I couldn't think of the actor's name as soon as we started playing, but
that's funny. Yeah.
he
I mean, yeah, I think that's probably like partially art style and maybe like, fidelity back then was like not obviously not, up to what it is now, but like at
oh,
the
I didn't
time
think it looked bad. It was just like uncannily Zach Woods to
no,
me.
I could see that. Yeah. I remember thinking like when this game came out, I was like, damn, that looks just like Nathan Philly. Like I was like, they just took his picture and put him in the game. Um yeah, that's funny. But essentially, they kind of lay out the character dynamics. I don't think it's really necessary to go through like each and every character and like talk about who they are unless you really want to, because to me, like the characters matter less because of who they are and more because of like what they do, right? Like the role that they play in like the greater narrative. Because it's kind of funny. They all just like are randomly, you know, um, helpful to each other without even realizing it, right? So, um, yeah, I think setting up the conflict. So the cutscene kind of starts you off in a carrier, getting ready for a combat drop into New Mombasa. Everyone in the squad thinks that their mission is the same as all the other ODSTs in their company, which is board a Covenant assault carrier and basically take it out. I mean, they're gonna do a clean sweep. They're gonna do that by getting into those pods and then firing the fucking pod through the hull of the carrier, which is pretty cool. Uh, Very Starship
Yeah,
Troopers. Like
I
there's a
love this.
yeah
This is so well done, and there aren't many moments in Halo that feel like this. Even
yeah
though you would think that there would be, it makes so much sense for the series. Yet it was like really surprising when this happened, and it's really cool too because like if you're looking out the window, it's a really like beautiful view, and this is just like this whole sequence is maybe my favorite in the game. Uh,
yeah
not I mean not in terms of like interactions because you're not really doing anything. You're just sort of like watching, but it's just designed so well as like a scripted kind of thing that's not like in a cutscene. Kind of the way that you would see in like a Valve game where you're like you can look around and you can like sort of see your environment, but there's
yeah
cinematic things occurring. I
yeah
really love stuff like that. That'll always kind of win my heart in a game, honestly.
totally. I mean the you know everything lines up in this portion. So everyone after like some grab assing is like okay, all right, get in your drop pods, and they all drop. Dare and Buck have kind of a quiet conversation beforehand, revealing a few things about their past relationship, which is a big surprise. They used to bone at one point, and then they don't see eye to eye now. Another big surprise, but the bigger thing is Buck has clearly not informed his team that there is a secret other reason why they're doing this, and that they will actually not be assaulting the carrier. He doesn't really let his team know fully what's going on. It doesn't seem like he's fully informed either.
Yeah,
Uh,
he doesn't know. She's the only one that knows, right? Like she hasn't
she's
told anybody because it's like a part
correct.
of the plot that later on she's been holding this information that would have made a lot of bad things not happen had that not been the case.
Exactly. So
Um,
she all basically like the line of information essentially is obviously Veronica Dare knows everything, right?
yeah.
Then she tells Buck that they're doing something else other than what the main objective of the ODSTs is, which is the carrier, right?
Hmm.
So he knows they're doing something. He hasn't even really told his team what that is yet. He at least at the very least he knows that they're going to be deviating from the main drop site, right? He
Yeah.
hasn't even told his team that much. So like there's a segment where basically, all of this is kind of established. everybody gets in their drop pods. You're dropping, and in the middle of the drop, you kind of see the carrier. It's like very clearly framed in front of you as like where everybody's heading. It's really cool. The music, the visuals, everything lines up in a really nice way.
Yep.
Um,
This will be like so prepare yourself. This will be the first irritating moment for you of me complaining about this game, but
I'm gonna end this
um
podcast right now.
no, I'm gonna try and I'm gonna sandwich compliment every aspect of this
Okay.
game. Every time I have something negative to say, I'll have something positive. Don't worry.
Okay.
So the her holding the information here is would be fine to me unless this very particular quote that we'll get to later on happens that pissed me off
Mhm.
as soon as it happened.
Okay.
Um, and it made this dynamic of the story really not make sense to me.
Mm.
But it has to do with her holding information here.
Okay.
Um, because she says something later on, and it's just immensely frustrating. But that's
Okay.
it. It's just like a story thing, not really gameplay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what that is at some point because, to me, the story in this is pretty innocuous. Like it's low-ish stakes and has very minimal bearing on like the Halo, I guess, universe or lore at large, with a couple notable exceptions. But to me, it's just very like here's just a moment by moment recounting of the day's events kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like some shit happens and here it is. Um, so maybe I didn't take it as seriously, but I just like it.
It's not so much serious. It's just like a weird it's like a weird dialogue thing that I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
I'm playing it up too much, but I feel like you'll probably agree with at least the sentiment that I have about it.
Got
Maybe
it.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'll save
um so yeah, so the drop happens at this exact moment that they're dropping in and about to land on the carrier. It goes into slip space. Um and the act of going into slip space basically sets off like a gigantic nuke in the middle of the city. Um Everyone is blown off course. From your perspective as the rookie, someone else's pod slams into the front of your pod and the screen like cracks. You can't see anything and you're just spinning. It's nice that they animated like your guy like really trying to hold on,
that.
because you can kind of like you feel exactly like what's going on here. Like they did a really good job of this. And then there's like a crash and it goes black and then 6 hours goes by.
You
um
take a little nap.
yeah, you take a small nap.
You get more sleep than I get on average in the week.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And honestly, like he comes out the other end seemingly totally fine. I mean, a little
Mm.
better rested, but no injuries, no real anything. In fact, the only injury occurs when the pod door shoots open and you fall out, and you fall like kind of a high height, like a couple stories, and when you hit the ground, your character's just like, oh, like you sprained your ankle or something, and your health goes down. And
How about that?
I think this is in the game to kind of show you how healing works, because um, if I remember if I remember correctly, I know for sure Halo 3 had regenerating health. I'm pretty sure 2 did as well.
Did
So,
Halo? Oh yeah, I
but
guess you're
Halo
right.
1 did not. And
Yeah.
I think this was their way of letting people know that hey, your health is not going to regenerate in this game. We're going back to that.
Hmm.
I think that was going to be their way of like creating like a pretty noticeable difference between Master Chief and the rookie that you're playing as. But um, yeah, I like that change. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
I can understand why people don't. I mean, hunting down health is never like super fun, but I like that it kind of raises the stakes a little bit.
I think from like a design level, I really appreciate showing a mechanic in that way versus giving you a UI screen that tells you.
Totally.
Um, People might miss it, but I don't I think that it's one of the better examples of just showing you a change versus telling you, just putting a little menu on your screen.
Yeah, and it's worth noting this is your first interaction with the city's AI as well. A lot of
Yeah.
people probably won't notice, but when you'll fall out of the pod, and once you hurt yourself, the AI kind of directs you to a nearby health station.
Mm,
I think it's a little subtle, in the sense that in a Halo game, you're not used to having to pay attention to the environment in that way. So I think there is a pop up where it's like, "Hey, come over here and heal yourself" or something. It's like it becomes like an objective, which is fine. I mean,
mhm.
whatever. They could have done it better, but it doesn't really offend me. Um, so at this point, um, if you knew nothing about this game going into it at this point, I feel like, um, if you'd already played Halo games, you'd be a little bit confused because there's really no like objective. The objective is like find your team, and it's nighttime, it's raining, visibility is pretty bad. You have like a thing that I like that's like a little night vision HUD visor thing that it's like a subtle like green tent that helps you see in
Mhm.
the dark. It also highlights things of interest. Um,
Yeah, it
which
becomes essential.
definitely, yeah, in the nighttime sections, it's pretty needed. Which is
I
kind of a
wonder if there's an
shame.
achievement for having never opened it. There has to be, right?
Who knows? I mean, they did make really dumb achievements back then, but I
Yeah.
feel like the annoying thing about that would be that it's harder to find the objects that way. You know what I mean? Like the things you
Yeah.
need to like start the missions.
That's what
But
makes me think it would be an achievement, honestly.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's nice. I think my biggest complaint is, and this is funny because I recall this being a really big complaint that people had about the old Splinter Cell games, which is that it's all so beautiful, but you spend most, like, let's say, I don't know, a majority of the game with that green filter over the graphics, basically making everything look ugly on purpose, you know?
Yeah, I kind of on one side I wanted to praise the fact that the night vision doesn't completely make it look like shit. It could be way worse, but I completely agree with you. It becomes like essential for a large portion of that game, and the areas like it's kind of the set piece is like these like streets.
Yeah,
And they're really cool. I think visually like they're my favorite areas. But yeah, you spend a lot of time looking at this like night vision thing, which again isn't horrible. It's just like, it's not the minimal UI view of the of the late 2010s.
totally.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's a neat feature, and I think it's pretty unique in a Halo game. It's kind of a nice break from just like a flashlight.
Mhm.
But it's cool. I like it overall. I think it makes sense in universe and for your character. But it does kind of take away from the atmosphere a little bit because you kind of lose like the neon glow and the high contrast of like the darkness and the lights in the cities and stuff like that, which takes away from the mood a little bit. But it's not a huge deal for me. So at this point, the structure of the game I think becomes like a bit more clear, which is you essentially wander around the Mombasa streets at night, looking for objects, that will direct you towards the maybe the whereabouts of your missing teammates.
Mhm.
Um,
You could do them out of order, right?
yeah,
Or no?
there's a certain point where the order, you can kind of change it around a little bit, but they
Mm.
lay them out in a way that makes things happen in a particular, um, unless you're going out of your way to avoid stuff. Most people will play them in the same order the first time, I would think, because they kind of lead you by the nose from object to object in a particular order that lets these missions play out in essentially like a chronological sequencing. But you can, yeah, there's a certain point where there's like three or four that could like shuffle around.
Mhm.
um the my understanding is, the so well, we'll get to that a little bit. So you wander around the city. There are Covenant patrols that are basically on the lookout for you. And yeah, these are the moments I feel like the most where we would kind of run out of ammo or feel like we were a little outgunned.
Yeah.
Um, just with the weapons that you start with.
I think
Um,
stealth really is like the optimal choice here, unless you're somebody who really loves all of the combat encounters in this game. I mean, there's so many like mandatory ones that I would, post finishing it, I think that you get your fill of like combat encounters. So
yeah.
I would say, if you're worried about like if you're like playing through this for the first time somehow, maybe consider doing those more stealthily because the game's not gonna. It's not like it's gonna hold back other combat encounters from you. You're gonna get like a lot of them. So
No,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I
Not that
think
it's bad, it's just that it's, I would have taken advantage of it more had I known how long it would take to like get through those because of like the bullet sponginess and
sure.
um yeah.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. They definitely want you to take the stealth a little bit more seriously. I think the unfortunate part is that they don't really provide you a lot of tools to remain stealthy.
Mhm.
Um, your crouch, you move slow as fuck. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously this was before there was a sprint in Halo, so there's no sprinting. So you basically just jog at like a leisurely pace past enemies and hope they don't look at you.
I think also I don't know, I mean you've played this game many times, but I feel like when you and I were being stealthy in situations, we were basically like hugging corners of buildings and sort of making like a square or like circle movement around them until we get to the street that we want to go to.
Totally.
And I was curious, like I didn't look up very much, but are there like vertical options for getting around them? 'Cause it's like this is like a weird thing to me where I really like the intent of the stealth. I think it's really cool because it's not common in the other Halo games, but I almost wish they would have made it feel a little bit more like clever, like just make you feel like you are doing things that are actually getting you away from like out of their view, whereas like basically the stealth in this game is just crouching and like going behind a pillar and like moving or like around the outside of the arena because each of these areas is basically like an arena. Like in the center of the street there's like some brutes set up or like a turret or whatever, so you're
Yeah.
just sort of like crouching around it. I would have appreciated like um a little bit more of like a dynamic thing to that. I don't know if that's like unfair because I know, I don't know, it's still cool. I like what they were going for.
Yeah, I'm a little split on it. I think the way that you described it as like basically like cornering or like taking things in a square around a certain region of the map, I kind of like because it sort of seems semi-realistic in that sense, like hugging a corner and just
Yeah.
sliding past everything. But yeah, I mean, I think most of your I share some of those criticisms. I think probably because I played it when it was new, I have a little bit more understanding about why things are the way they are. Because if they're going to use the same engine as Halo 3, they're probably not going to implement like a lot of different features
Mm.
or systems. You know what I mean? Like it's not like they're suddenly going to have like a really good stealth system or something like that. Um, I it would be nice to have more tools like that. I think especially like verticality exists at some points,
Yeah.
but it's certainly not enough. Most buildings you cannot enter, which I think is a missed opportunity, right?
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's weird because like you get these like levels, like the one that you and I were talking about earlier that we both really don't like, and I would be surprised if anybody really likes it, but you have a lot of kind of like interesting indoor set pieces, and I almost wish like my ideal version of this would have been sort of weaving in and out of buildings that are open instead of streets where the insides of those buildings are set up a little bit more like to your advantage of like getting around groups of Covenant without them seeing you. Like I almost don't like think of it as like a stealth mechanic so much as like a level design thing because like it would make
yeah.
sense. Like the city's kind of a little bit in ruin, so like maybe like you experience that on a few levels where you have to like go around things. But I would have appreciated if these if more of these combat encounters were indoors and like you could maybe avoid them. That would have felt really cool, I think.
Yeah, yeah, they give you a taste of that at the beginning. But I agree. I think more indoor outdoor kind of mix environments where you're basically like going like cutting between buildings to avoid enemies would be
Hmm.
considerably more interesting. I mean, to me, that's what makes games like Stalker or in some cases Metro um, really engaging is um, being able to utilize a lot of aspects of the environment to your advantage. Even Far Cry, especially older ones, those that's something that this game has a pretty big missed opportunity with, and I think it's just something that resource or time constraint or whatever is mostly what contributed to that. I'm sure they had more in mind, but yeah, you essentially are on the road the whole
Yeah.
time. You just walk through the middle of the street like 90% of the time, which it isn't super interesting stealth wise. But I think it's worth noting that a lot of these segments where you're wandering the streets at night really don't go on that long if you're willing to cut past most of the enemies and get to the missions.
Yeah. I would
Um,
say I would do that on a second playthrough, I
yeah, and
think.
we did that a lot, especially towards the end. I think the beginning we just weren't we were kind of trying to fight a lot of stuff, and it wasn't really necessary.
Hmm.
I will say so. Exactly what you're talking about is as you get towards the first object that you're going to find, which is Dare's helmet. You, I like this one because you do cut through a building and you basically do a room by room sweep of the building, where it's like a bunch of long hallways with like rooms on each side, and you come across a few jackals and stuff like picking over the remains of a firefight.
Hmm.
Um, that's almost exactly what you're talking about, and I think it's one of the better parts of the nighttime. It's really cool. Um,
Can you actually get around them without them noticing, or is it? I remember like we ended up just I'm sure in most of those cases it was just me shooting at things, but like can you actually get through those areas without disturbing them?
um, I'm sure it's possible because most of
Mm,
them are in different rooms. But I think in this case, I mean, if you think about how like whatever, I mean, this is like the cringiest thing I've ever said. If you think about how like military like strategy of clearing a house works, you're supposed to go through methodically into each room and make sure everything is empty before you get down to whatever business you have in there.
yeah,
And so I think it makes sense. Like they expect you to go room by room and sweep everything. One, because it just sort of feels natural. Like you want to feel safe. You want to know that there's no surprises. But more importantly, it's like I think one of those hallways that we go into actually is where you find the shotgun, right? And that's like an optional thing. Like if you weren't clearing the whole space, you wouldn't find the shotgun in that case. So,
yeah.
and everybody loves the Halo shotgun. I don't care what anyone fucking says. That thing is, it's like the most useless gun beyond 5 feet away, but I'll still take it every time.
Yeah, I agree with that in most of the games. I think in this case, anytime that I had a shotgun, I mean, it doesn't do shit to the brutes, or it doesn't do very much at least.
No,
You,
unless you're
uh,
unless you're point blank. I mean, but
I mean, even then,
it's
I
a two
don't.
shot, I think, at
Yeah,
up close. Which I mean, I think in for Halo, and most people are used to it being a one shot up close. But
yeah, I can't remember if it's a one shot on any of the other. I mean, obviously on some of them, but like I'm trying to remember like how often the shotgun ends up feeling super powerful in this game. I think just like against brutes, like because you're
yeah,
mostly fighting brutes, it's kind of yeah. I don't know. It's fine in this game. I do think that it's like super powerful in the other ones though.
yeah. It's mostly an anti flood weapon, which probably the best part
Yes,
about Halo
yeah.
3 ODST is that the flood do not show up at all. Um, which is a blessing.
Mm.
But yeah, it's you know,
I'm not as down on the flood, honestly. Because of how it like ends up varying up like in like combat encounters because there a lot of the Covenant kind of you throughout this whole game you get very familiar with like their tactics and stuff, and I feel like the whole thing with the flood in the other games is that it kind of changes your expectations. I mean, you're doing the same thing, but like
I agree with that, with the exception that, I mean, the problem with the Flood isn't that they exist, it's that they are often in the most unenjoyable levels in any of
Yeah.
these games. I mean, I don't know if that's just a necessity of the level design for an enemy like that, or if it's just somehow Bungie doesn't understand how to utilize the Flood in a fun way. But like, pretty much every Flood mission that I'm thinking of across Halo 1, 2, and 3, other than the first mission they're introduced in Halo 1, which I think is pretty good.
Hmm.
Um, all the other ones are really bad. I kind of like the library in Halo 1. Um,
I think the only reason that I slightly disagree is just that um I really appreciate in games when you have like encounters where the enemies are sort of like fighting amongst each other or with like
themselves,
other
yeah,
things.
I
So
agree.
like in three, when you're encountering like brutes and stuff fighting with the flood, those are like some of my favorite moments because it's just like I don't know, it's like really empowering as a player because it's just like, oh, now you have me to deal with too. So
I agree.
I can either like watch this play out and like kill whoever's like left or like yeah, I really I love moments like that in games. So I agree with you. I like fighting the flood in the first one, but I like the way that they introduce like a third sort of enemy in the game that is like fighting your enemy as well. That's always like fun to me in games.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I completely agree. That stuff is always really cool. I think just the negatives of the Flood outweigh most of the positives
Mhm.
over like extended periods of time. I think if the Flood existed like they should, which is like they're in two missions in this game and then they'll go away for the rest of the game, like they would be perfect. But because
Mhm.
usually once they're introduced, they continuously come back for almost every mission through the end of the game. It's
Yeah.
especially true in Halo 3, man. They are everywhere in that fucking game. And man, oh God. I don't know. Just by the time you're done fighting them, you're just like, man, I'm so over this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, not to belabor an enemy that has no presence in the game that we're talking about.
I
Uh,
I don't know the canonical reasons for this, although I'm sure I do because like I just can't remember. But like elites never show up in this game at all, and I it makes sense why they wouldn't, I guess, in this experience. But I did end up kind of like missing them. They're my favorite. They're like my favorite sort of like alien and the Halo games, and it just like character wise also because the best quote in the series comes from an elite uh
Absolutely,
by far
yeah.
that's the one thing I feel like you and I completely agree on. It's
Come
just
out so that
like
we may kill you is a 10 out of 10 line. I would like to. We're gonna find the exact writer at Bungie who wrote that in 2002 or whenever that game was being developed,
yeah,
and interview him and be like, "How did you come up with this?" Because it's extremely good.
because like yeah, I can't overstate enough how much I love that because like the games when I was younger, I found a lot of moments in the games funny for sure. As I've gotten older, a lot of it just like isn't as funny as when I was younger. That line is just like transcends everything else
Yeah.
in the games. It is
Well,
so funny when it comes up and it's just and it seems unintentional because I don't know. It's amazing. I agree with you. That writer needs to be acknowledged.
we're getting into a little bit of why I think Halo, like as a universe, is so entertaining, which is just the stark, vast, fucking just at a baseline, obviously like visual level, but even into like a like minutia of personality level.
Mhm.
Each member of the Covenant is so completely different from each other that half of the fun of having them as the enemy force is how many there are and just how different they are and how much they disagree on things. Like
Yeah.
the Covenant over the course of all of these games is made pretty clearly to be shown as dysfunctional, right? Like it's a bunch of races united by the fact that they've unfortunately, in some cases, been recruited, maybe even against their will, towards this like higher purpose that they may or may not believe in legitimately. It
Well, like
seems,
certainly against their will, right? Because like the grunts are
well,
absolutely like it's against their will, but also the jackals too, right? Because isn't it like I mean, you read the books. I know that they're the the secret thing in this game is in the books, from what I understand. But yeah, aren't most of them like technically enslaved, other than like the elites and the brutes? I
It's,
mean,
I
they're like
mean,
indoctrinated, but
indoctrinated is probably how I would put it. I think it's more that just like in some instances, um I don't want this to be like a big lore dump, but basically like, the prophets had their planet wiped out at some point,
mhm.
and so there's not that many of them left, and they all end up kind of using the technology from the people who wiped out their planet, I which are not introduced until Halo 4 as a race, or they're referenced. It's like the Forerunners. Oh, the Forerunners, or whoever the fuck that is, right? Who built all the rings and stuff like that. Turns out they weren't great people. Who knew, right? I mean, it's, they build gigantic weapons of mass destruction, and man, that shit comes back to bite you. So technology kind of scavenged from the Forerunners, by the prophets, who believe that the Forerunners are essentially gods, um, is utilized to make the Covenant as strong as they are. And it's basically just each time the prophets, it's like just them, and then they go to a new planet and they recruit a new race. And by recruit, I mean they show up with their massively superior technology and go, join us or we fucking destroy you. And then they go, okay, I guess, like, so, in the case of the jackals, I think it's easy to imagine like a bunch of lizards running around somewhere as like pretty simple creatures, and then these people with gigantic spaceship guns showing up and going, fucking get in, loser, we're going to destroy the universe.
They weren't
um
even bipedal before the
yeah,
Covenant showed up. They
exactly,
get
yeah,
there and they're like the little Anole lizards in Florida all over the
exactly.
place.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, I think the varying levels of intelligence between member races of the Covenant are they dive into that stuff a lot more deeply in the books in a really entertaining way. Like,
Hmm.
even to the point that like thoughts, from grunts, for instance, they're shown, like, grunts are shown to have complex thoughts and self-awareness and blah blah blah, but like, not not to like an intelligent degree. They're still like children. You know what I mean? Like, they have complex thoughts like children have complex thoughts, where it's like, I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know why exactly, but I don't like that. And it's entertaining, and they kind of play with that a little bit in the games, but I really like it. It's at its best when all of these chaotic elements are working together. Like the jackals are often like loners, right? Like, it doesn't really seem like they like hanging out with a lot of the other a lot of the other races, because they don't really understand the other ones, and the jackals are like a lot more animalistic, maybe, than even some of the other races. Like, it's pretty heavily implied, I think, in this first part where you bump into them in that building, that they might be eating those dead bodies. um
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
um you know
I definitely noticed that like immediately. Um yeah, the varying levels of sentience among the Covenant is definitely like one of the most interesting things about them.
Yeah, and I think in particular the elites, with their like really staunch, like, they are the paladins of the Covenant. Like, they are the goody two shoes, like, annoying cop uncles of the Covenant, where they're basically just like, like, ah, yes, duty and honor, and you know what I mean. Like, they're just, and that's what makes the come out so that we may kill you so funny, is because it's just like very like on brand for a like that race to say that. But also, like, I think in any other instance they'd be like, maybe show a little restraint, but in this case it's a heretic, and so there's absolutely no quarter for something like that. So they're just like, fuck this guy, we're just gonna kill him either way. Like, there's no surrender in this instance. We're putting you down. uh,
Yeah, they this game ends up having like some of the most like enemy dialogue. We're really like sticking on this level here for a
yeah, I
minute,
know.
but I guess this stuff won't come up again because it's going to be throughout the game. But
Yeah,
the enemy dialogue I think is like dialed up a little bit more here. I might be misremembering, but you hear the brutes say some funny things. But
yeah.
again, like because I love the elites so much, it made me wish that one of the games just had like way more sort of ambient elite dialogue because their perspective on situations is just so funny and they're so like
Yeah.
well characterized
Let me tell you
in
how
the
much you're
series.
gonna hate Halo Reach.
Yeah.
Because yeah, in that game they do not speak English, which the lore reason for that is that it's the first time meeting the Covenant, and they didn't have the translation technology for it, so they weren't sure how to translate from what they were saying into what you were hearing in your helmet.
Yeah, I thought
Um,
Cortana was doing that, but I guess that wouldn't have because they don't speak English in the first one, right?
yeah, they do.
Do they?
Uh,
Okay.
yes.
Hmm.
I guess actually the elites don't. I guess
Yeah, I don't
it's
remember.
it's it's just, but the grunts definitely do in the first one. Like they always have made their like "Ah," like um, but they all of them speak increasingly more English over the course of all of the games for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, they kind of do. I think they do directly. I think we've talked about this before. They pretty directly state that Cortana is the one doing this for the chief. Um, But if that's the
Mm.
case, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
weird.
why would the troopers be able to hear them
Yeah,
then?
yeah, I don't
But
know.
I mean,
Especially like
AI isn't AI kind of like dime a dozen in this universe? Like
it
they don't
is.
all
Yeah,
get
they
their
could.
own AI waifu, but like I
Yeah,
imagine they get like a lesser, just like the translation only
or like
operating
the
system.
like the one AI presiding over an entire battlefield could translate everything happening to a trooper individually into his helmet or whatever. Because it's pretty. It's shown that they all have those little screens. They'll have like a HUD.
Hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, we're thinking, listen, Halo lore is exactly it's cool enough when you pay exactly the right amount of attention to it, and then it starts to fucking fall apart the instant that you scrutinize things beyond like their initial cool factor. Like who fucking
Yeah.
really cares about like why they speak a bunch of English? It's
Oh
just
yeah,
funny. I
it
do
is
think
funny.
it's pretty entertaining when yeah, when the brutes I find their voice so funny because most of the time they're like really threatening, but then they'll get stuck and they're like like there's just something so like hilarious about the brutes being like really some of the most intimidating enemies in the game. But then like the instant anything goes wrong, it's like a slapstick comedy.
They like threaten to eat you, right?
I
Am I
think so.
misremembering
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Brutes
That's like the
definitely eat
funniest.
people. That's for sure true. Yeah, they call you like meat or something. They like smell you. I don't know.
I think they say they're gonna eat your bones or something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we did spend a long time on this. So you clear this building, and embedded in this monitor that's like flickering is Dare's helmet. And the structure of the game is illuminated even more because it turns to a cutscene, and as the rookie, he like pulls the helmet out of the screen and he like examines it, and he looks out the window, and then it cuts to however many hours earlier, the drop kind of completing and showing Nathan Fillion's character Buck crashing in his pod and getting out. And basically, the crux of his mission at this point is to go and rescue Dare, who is stuck in her pod,
Hmm.
some on the kind of on the other side of the city. In this case, I remember this mission being pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, it's a big change of tone because it switches from daytime to like kind of a morning, or it switches from nighttime to a kind of a morning fog sort of thing. And yeah, you're basically just fighting through the city streets. um it's I wouldn't say it's like super bombastic or anything like some of the later missions, but it's a pretty satisfying one. You get a lot of character development dialogue between Buck and Dare, about their relationship. And it's all kind of written like a crime noir. Like Buck's like, or Dare's like, remember what I told you that morning? And Buck's like, I remember not getting an answer, or whatever. It's just all fucking stupid. Like, who cares? But it's nice flavor, and it provides a backdrop for everything. But it's entertaining, and it kind of endears you to these characters and the situation they're in.
Hmm.
But it has no bearing on anything really. The ending of this game is the characters are almost exactly where they are now. um,
Yeah,
but but
yeah,
whatever,
that's true.
it's fine. So you fight through the city, and you get to Dare's crash site, and it essentially reveals a new enemy, which I think is from a like fighting perspective pretty uninteresting, but from a no, I would say from a narrative perspective also pretty uninteresting. It's the tentacle thing.
Hmm.
They're like almost literally a slave race. They're basically just living computers. Um,
But you don't know that yet,
you don't
right?
know that yet, but
Yeah.
it like floats up to Buck and wiggles its tentacles at him and is like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" He's like, it's like scanning him, and it
Yeah.
has Dare's helmet like pierced through one of its tentacles.
Hmm.
Um, Presumably, it was basically just kind of like digging around out of curiosity. But
I mean, it certainly was, right?
yeah, I mean, I don't think it was doing anything of value. Like, it doesn't seem like they're super interested in um, helping the Covenant in particular, right?
Hmm. Yeah, are they man, I should have been paying attention to this, but are they combatant at any point?
They never fight, but they do provide a shield for the
Right.
Covenant.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely yeah, I remember that. I just can't remember if they have any sort of like offensive capabilities.
Not that I can tell. Yeah, not that I
Okay.
recall. Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm pretty sure all they do is float around and until you kill them, and then they explode.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you feel pretty bad for them. Like they're pretty harmless looking. They look kind of silly actually. Um,
Hmm.
and Yeah, in this cutscene, he's like wiggling his arms at Buck, and then a fucking sniper shot just pierces him through the head, and he falls over and dies. And it was Romeo, the guy with the sniper from the opening,
Hmm.
um, having killed it, and then it explodes, and they kind of talk about, damn, I never seen that before. Like they have that moment where they they put themselves in the shoes of the player, because the player's like, what the fuck is that thing? And they're basically also exactly like, what the fuck is that thing?
Yeah. I think it would
Um,
make sense for them to assume that it's hostile at this point, just based on what's known.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I'm on board with that. Making sense at this point, honestly.
yeah.
Um,
I don't think at any other point have they run into friendly Covenant.
right, yeah, it
So
wouldn't make sense for them to, even if this thing like wasn't presenting an immediate threat, I would still be like, I don't know what this thing's fucking doing.
yeah, totally,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
And it definitely doesn't speak English. Um,
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think, I think for the rest of these levels, unless there's something in particular during the night portion that you want to mention, I don't think it's really necessary to revisit the streets.
Hmm.
Um, I will say, yeah, after this point, you return to the rookie and you just do the same thing you just did. You sneak through the streets to try to find the next piece of gear that leads you into a mission. That's the structure of the game. You Daytime is played as other characters. Nighttime is played as the rookie, and you just kind of bounce back and forth throughout. I do like the major tone and pacing change between the different segments. Um, all the daytime sections are like pretty big battles that are relatively bombastic, loud, no sneaking, right?
Hmm.
Nighttime is quiet. There's like low kind of saxophone and like piano
Oh yeah, how
music.
did we not talk about that yet?
Yeah, we haven't mentioned it yet, but yeah, the probably top three best parts of this game is the music,
Hmm.
and it is absolutely just at its best during the nighttime segments, because it's just such a beautiful like lingering saxophone, and sometimes it gets a little bit more bombastic or loud or whatever, more chaotic. But most of the time, it's just very smooth and melancholy. They'll throw in some piano at varying levels. Sometimes it's single notes. Sometimes they'll do some chord progressions that make things a little bit more intense. But yeah, man, it is fucking beautiful. And I think that the music makes the tone switch clear. Obviously, the fact that it's nighttime and raining and you're alone is very like calm and interesting. I do think it serves to make the missions that much more entertaining when you get like these breaks. You get
Mm.
like a moment to like catch your breath. Whereas, the big complaint I think with Call of Duty games is that you begin sprinting in level 1 and you finish level 10 sprinting, and along the way you've been involved in every explosion that's possibly imaginable. I think this game does a really good job of like breaking up the monotony of the chaos with these like nighttime segments. So
Yeah, I agree with the tonal switching. I think that one thing that I was thinking throughout most of the game until it became like apparent to me that it wasn't gonna go this way. I really didn't know anything about the story before we played it. Um, and once that music started playing, like the impression I got was that it was going to have really like sad moments.
yeah,
Just because like the tone of that music, to me kind of feels like, all right, so you go into these like more loud battle segments, like what you just mentioned, and then you go back into that world, and you're almost having these longer moments of peace to reflect on what happened.
totally.
Um, and I love that intent. I think one thing that kind of ended up bugging me, I know like when we were playing it, I was like, oh, this is gonna end like Rogue One, right? And nobody answered me, and yeah, we'll get to that. But I I wish this game was a little more like emo than it actually is, or a little darker. Like I wish that more characters died. It's just like it's weird because that music and those set pieces, like when you're in the streets, are so cool and so different from the rest of the game, but nothing really sad happens.
Yeah,
You know, I don't mind. Like I get that that wasn't the intent, but I kind of felt a little fooled by that.
yeah,
Um, I thought that it was going to end up being like, this whole time you are disempowered by not being a Spartan. So you're just gonna watch all these people like sort of dying around you because like the Covenant is much more powerful than you. But that kind of doesn't happen. Um,
no, no,
the action segments are a little bit more silly. I like them a lot less than the city segments, but yeah, that's just kind of the wrap up of my thought there is I wish that it was a little bit more of a tragic series. Emo is the wrong word. That just seemed
no,
funny
no,
to me,
no.
but
I
like just
mean,
more it just the music feels very like tragic to me. I wish that the
totally.
game's story beats followed that a little bit better.
Hey,
That
man,
would
you
have that would have set the game over for me in a completely different way,
sure.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, you may end up liking Halo Reach a lot more than I thought.
Mm.
Yeah, I could see where you're coming from. I kind of agree with you in that, you know, that's I guess that's what I meant when I said this is kind of just a fun romp because
Hmm.
you know, I, the story has almost no consequences in it. Um, yeah, it's at this point, I guess they kind of want you to think that Dare's dead, but
Yeah, but they could have done that. Like
yeah, I mean, they
they
could
could have
have,
done
they definitely could
they
have.
their little romance thing is like interesting at the beginning, and then it just like doesn't really go anywhere. Like it's like kind of it's just kind of like silly.
Yeah,
Uh yeah,
and
I'm not down on it. I don't want to like come off as though I don't like what they ended up doing. It's just that I really would have like ended up respecting and like sort of like coming away from this with like a, oh, this is like the Halo game of all the ones, like just because like if they did something with that, because their romance is like a big part of the plot. I feel like every
yeah,
time they reconnect in a cutscene, they get
Y-
into some weird little quip. But
90% of this game um, has no bearing on the rest of the plot, which means it's the perfect game for them to kill a bunch of characters.
yeah,
Um,
this was the one to do it,
yeah, I mean,
you know?
I'm gonna say there are a few characters from this that do return,
Hmm.
but the majority don't. and that's
Yeah.
basically just a missed opportunity in terms of, because by this point they're like no strangers to killing off major characters. I mean,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
first game, Commander Keys's death, or Captain I guess Captain Keys, his daughter becomes commander. Captain Keys, his death is like one of the things you remember the most from that game,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's brutal. Same, yeah. I guess in two, who dies in two? Maybe nobody dies in two. Actually,
Mm,
I'm like struggling to think.
I don't
Um,
remember any. The
yeah, three is
Arbiter is like the only character I was paying attention to in two.
yeah. The Arbiter is great. Three is really cool because that's where everyone dies. Where it's like Miranda Keys dies, Sergeant Johnson dies. Um, what? Does Lord Hood, Ron Perlman's character, get killed? I don't remember. He doesn't
Mm,
show up anymore after that, though. I think.
Lord Hood.
Yeah, Lord Hood. Um,
Yeah, the human cost I wish was highlighted a little bit more. I felt
yeah,
like this would have been the game to do it. That was my assumption going
sure.
into it. Maybe I shouldn't have had that assumption. I don't know, but
Yeah,
um, when I hear that a game is about like the ODST, that's kind of where I thought it would go.
yeah. And they try to like highlight the desolation of the city, but you don't see any civilians at any point. So even that doesn't really have an effect on you very
Yeah,
much. But
yeah.
yeah, it's just not that game. It's they just had different feelings going into making it, I imagine, than we did. But
I
um,
wonder if at any point maybe it was more that game because of the music and the implication, but maybe it never was. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know that
Um,
Bungie has that in them, but I mean,
yeah.
as they've gone on to prove with Destiny, which is a game that has almost no narrative weight to it at all.
Oh,
So I
just not
mean,
their style.
it's just not their style, man. They're just like, I don't know, here's some cool concepts. Anyway,
Yeah.
check this out. Check out this explosion. Um, so yeah, I don't know, but um, yeah. So at this point, Dare's missing. You don't know where she is. They're kind of implying that she's dead, and she doesn't show up for the rest of the game until the very end.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So so you wander around at night again. The next mission is I think one that we had some of the most fun in,
Mhm.
which is Uplift Reserve, and it is the one where you start out as Dutch with the Spartan laser,
Yeah.
and you get in that and you jump in that warthog, and this is one of those good old warthog levels where it's just shit's popping off. You're bumping into a ton of AI. The I guess the interpretation is obviously you're trying to reunite with your squad. Dutch is landed on the beach, but I don't know exactly what the mission was here for the Marines. Maybe they were trying to protect the space elevator. I don't really know, but it fucking blows up anyway. There's like a huge explosion. You see the space elevator in the distance collapse from a
Yeah. I
narrative
think this was the
perspective.
first time that I like acknowledged that the skyboxes in this game are so cool. Like just like the environmental stuff. Like this moment's pretty interesting looking visually.
Halo has always had some of the best skyboxes in video games for sure.
Yeah.
They're always like very like relevant to what's going on, and they do a good job of setting the mood.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, it's rad, and I mean, a warthog level is always fun. Like
Hmm.
we were having a pretty good time, I think, with this.
Yeah.
Um, there's not
I like
much to
that the
say though.
warthogs feel as though they are constructed of aluminum.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you flick one and it just flies through the air.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's this game highlights all of the best parts about Halo to me, is like the intermix between vehicles and on foot, the AI being ridiculous, like having like a bunch of marine companions alongside you to try to keep up with you and inevitably end up getting themselves killed.
Hmm.
Um, it's all really cool. I think in this particular instance, the environment uh, could probably have been a little bit more interesting. Like it's just kind of like a desert rocky region. I think it's supposed to be a beach actually, but hard to tell. I mean, you start out on the beach. I guess it's just sandy. I don't know. Not really of note. I think you end up in a zoo, right? At some point.
Oh, is that this
Um,
level? That's the end of it, isn't it?
yeah, you end up at
Yeah.
the zoo. But yeah, not it's a good ass level, man. It's good. It's just getting to do some vehicle stuff in Halo is always fun, and the enemy placement is just perfect. It's basically like you're just crashing through a bunch of Covenant roadblocks, basically. Um, it's cool. Yeah, I really like it. I don't know if you have much more to say, but I'd say it's one of the highlights of this campaign for sure.
Yeah, I like any time that they give you a Spartan laser. Although it's kind of weird that you can operate that thing. I don't know if like they're meant to be operated by. Well, I guess the troopers have been, or like the Marines have been doing it in all the games. Um, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's my favorite weapon. I think like when you're just like taking out banshees and stuff with it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
super
it's
cool.
very satisfying.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think part of the charm of a lot of these vignettes is how they connect into each other.
Hmm.
But this one in particular, I don't, it seems like basically you kind of just do your own thing, assisting a lot of these Marines and whatever their mission is, and then you just end up crashing what he doesn't he like crash his warthog into like the plaza, and that's where the rookie finds and starts the mission, right? It's like he like drives through
Yeah.
that wall or something and just ends up. Yeah, and I think it ends there, and he hasn't yet connected with any of the other members. It's not like the end of the last one where Buck and Romeo end up like linking up. At this point, Dutch is still on his own,
Mhm.
um, and so it's kind of just like a little aside. It's cool to see, it's cool to play, but again, doesn't have a lot of like overall narrative weight or anything like that. It's just here it is. Um,
Mhm.
do some driving.
Yeah.
um, so obviously you go back to night, and then you continue until you find. Um, I'm trying to remember what object this one was. Was it like the?
Is it the sniper?
Was it? I don't think so. No, but that I really like that level. Um, no, this is the one where you play as Mickey and you get to drive the Scorpion tank.
Is it the canister filled with insulation that
No,
fills up your wounds?
that's cool though. That's later as well. This one was pretty unmemorable. It was like a metal box or something, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, you take over as Mickey, and it's like that. I actually kind of like this opening where he's like kind of just wandering through the streets, and all of a sudden, like a bunch of you see like it's like really quiet, and then you see like a bunch of soldiers running in one like from one like left to right basically, and there's like a lot of explosions and stuff on the left side, and he's like hey, where's all the fighting at? And they're like, take a guess, genius. And it's in the direction that they're running from, which is pretty funny. um yeah, I it's pretty good. Yeah, I another really just well designed mission. Like starts off with a pretty big on fight, um firefight, or on foot firefight, that like you're just moving through the city streets, and then pretty quickly you just jump in a Scorpion tank and just start annihilating everything.
Mhm.
um it's nice that they what I you I think we each get our own tank, which is perfect.
Yeah.
um it ends up, I mean, again, there's like no difficulty associated with that, but it's fun. um
It is really fun. There's a moment later on in the game where you get a scorpion, and it's also kind of fun, but I wish they would have like amped it up a little bit. But I love the scorpion levels in all of these games, just like shooting things out of the sky, and yeah, it's really fun.
yeah, absolutely. um yeah, I think missions like this where they go from like, because you start out on foot, you get into a vehicle, and then you end on foot again. Like you have to remember, this is the mission where you you get out of the tank, and then you have to like kind of defend against um like a basic kind of like a rush of Covenant. Remember, you're like in that little plaza area where you're like kind of at high ground, and all the Covenant is rushing up towards you.
Hmm.
And they just keep getting dropped off, and a bunch of wraiths show up. One of the highlights for me of all these games for sure. I think at that point you bump into Dutch, and he's like, "All right, what's going on?" And then you guys all kind of hold out in that portion against all the Covenant showing up. It's
Yeah.
cool.
The wraiths end up being much more of a problem in this game than the other ones. They'll one shot you if you're not in the right place.
You know,
And you can't always tell when it's about to happen. I think
yeah,
actually the majority of the times that I died in this game were like I just exploded and I don't know how. Most likely from a wraith.
yeah. It's kind of a normal
Yeah.
Halo thing to me. Is like
Do
dying
they kill
without
you on one
realizing.
hit though from
I
them
think
and
they
the
always
others?
did. I think they always
Oh,
did.
okay.
If
Hmm.
not, then it was like if you had like even 5% of your health missing, they would take you out. But
Yeah, I think that I remember them at least on the difficulties we played on. They would like take you down to very low health, but in this game there were genuine moments where I was like
yeah,
just completely deleted. Uh, yeah,
that's kind of the funny thing about Halo is there's just so many things that one hit kill you.
yeah.
Like getting stuck by a plasma grenade, or yeah,
Hmm.
any explosion like that. I mean, I remember us complaining in Halos 1 and 2 with the Covenant or the Flood enemy that had the rocket launcher.
Oh my God.
I mean, why even do that? Why?
I'll be honest with you, I kind of like it. It's annoying, but it's really funny and different. Uh, yeah, I kind of like when when they have the rocket launchers.
It's just
Um,
so silly, but
yeah.
so um
Can we take a quick break real quick?
oh sure. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, cool. All right, one second.
Cool. And we're back again. It's the second
Okay.
time today.
Second and
Um
final time today,
Second and final time we're back.
and then we go back to sleep
Yeah.
for well, Halo Infinite's out, so we don't get to go to sleep yet.
No. But we also have to we have to play Reach, and then 4, and
Mm,
probably not 5 because it never came out on PC.
what a weird choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know. I can't imagine how Infinite starts
I wonder what
based
their
on
reasoning is for that.
what I know about the ending to 5. I wonder if they're just going to pretend like that never happened.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's
Love a
weird.
retcon.
Love a good retcon.
Yeah.
Um, you know what's funny about these games? I feel like the more we talk about them, the less interesting the stuff that's good becomes, and the more interesting the stuff that's bad becomes. Like the stuff that's good is the stuff that's always been good, with maybe some like exceptions that we're excited to talk about. And then
Yeah.
like I like how for the last 2 missions we're just like, yeah, they're really good missions anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's true. I think I oversold my negative things to say because as we're going through this, I'm finding that as I like bring them up, you're not really disagreeing with me. So they're not really negatives, and I don't even know if they're criticisms. They're just like things that I noticed that maybe I wish were a little different.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's really the majority of how I feel about a lot of things in this, but. I think that what you're saying makes sense with like the progression of the games over the years too. Like maybe they just gained some charm but lost other bits of charm that were present in the games.
Yeah.
Um, One really does end up being my favorite, I think, overall. Um, I really like one and two, and yeah, we'll have to rank them. I have a really soft spot in my heart for two.
I have a
Maybe
soft
two's my
spot in my
favorite.
trash can for two.
Oh man, but like the thing is there's nothing else in the other games that comes close to them switching back and forth with the Arbiter to me. I love the Arbiter missions. I love like the story stuff with him and like just getting the other side of the story.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like two.
Yeah, I mean, I think narratively two is probably one of the best. But in
Yeah,
terms of gameplay, it's probably one of the worst.
I would agree with that.
But
But I seek out what narrative positives in the series I can.
it's fair. Speaking of narrative positives, um, nothing is happening in this game. But
Nothing mattered in this game.
yeah, yeah. I mean, based on where it's situated in the timeline, you knew that was going to be the case. Um, but I do think, I mean, well, whatever. The rubbery alien octopus with the explosive device strapped to its body is I guess they imply that it's the only reason why the UNSC even knew about what the brutes were up to digging in the middle of nowhere during Halo 3. I guess I
It
don't
wouldn't
know.
feel like as much of a retcon if they were present in battles in the other games. Uh, because there's nothing, or if something happened in this game to imply that they were somehow liberated from the Covenant, unless I missed that. Is there an implication that that happened, or is it just that we captured this one and we got some information and then they never show up again,
Well,
but
I
with no
think
real reason?
I think the implication being that they are usually like part of the cleanup crew. So you as Master Chief would never
Um,
see them because
sure.
you're at the forefront of the battle. Because if you think about it, during the battle portions during the day, you don't really see these things that much. You only see them
Yeah.
like you only see them at night, and it seems like they just use them to like scan things and like add to the database of knowledge that the Covenant has.
Yeah, they're the camera guy from Overlord.
Exactly right. Nice.
A movie nobody saw,
Yeah, a movie that yeah,
but
exactly.
everybody should have seen.
You and I saw twice and everyone else saw 0 times.
Oh, I've seen that movie like four
Have
times.
you really? Jesus.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
That movie that movie is actually a very apt comparison to this game because I think it's a movie that has a lot of good and is a good time but doesn't really contribute meaningfully to anything. You know what I
I've
mean?
been I've brought this up every time. God, we're so off track, but I've brought that up like every time we've watched that movie. By every time I mean all two of the times that we've watched that movie. That is like one of the few movies where I feel like it's while being like a good quality film, it also like follows the structure of like a video game in a weird way.
Yeah,
Like you can
I agree with
almost
that.
look at that movie in like a wireframe sense and see it as like a video game. You know,
I would agree
it's
with
really
that.
weird.
Yeah, I would agree. It has like a very like gamey progression where they're like achieving objectives, and
Yeah,
it
there's like
changes the way things work.
levels if you think about it.
Yeah,
Like you can see that movie as like a video game.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I agree.
it I, it probably feels most like Wolfenstein for obvious reasons, but uh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Stay tuned
great
for the Overlord podcast.
movie review. Yeah,
Oh my god. Did Tyler watch that movie?
I
Did
have no
anybody else
idea.
we know watch that movie?
I have no idea. I don't think so. But
Mm, okay. Well,
I'm trying to make my hair even more ridiculous. Um. So
you look like David Lynch.
thank you, thank you. I that's every day I get dressed. I'm like, what would David Lynch wear? How would he do his hair? What would he
He
do?
would just do what you just did
Yeah, exactly.
and put on one of his 12 suits.
Yeah, they're all aren't they always black?
Yeah,
Anyway,
Yeah, he has like several interviews where he just talks about how he always buttons up his shirt because he doesn't like when his neck is cold. I'm full of David Lynch facts.
What a strange man. You guys have a lot in common. I think you're both fucking freaks. All right. Uh,
Nobody can see the shirt I'm wearing.
yeah. Um, for good reason. So, um, next up, it's a mission called Oni Alpha,
My
and
favorite sushi shop.
um, yes, exactly. Oni Alpha, 4-star omakase in the heart of Chicago. It costs you $400, and it actually sucks. Um,
I was about to like right before that last part. I was like, "This sounds like a New York joke, actually." And then you said, "Oh, it sucks,"
yeah,
and it's $400. Oh, it is more appropriate for Chicago.
it's exactly where we went last week. Anyway,
Oh my
so
god.
so Oni Alpha um is great. I think this might be my favorite mission.
um.
Oni Alpha, you start off on the bridge arming those demolition charges to
Oh
destroy,
yeah, yeah.
and it this game this is like Halo firing on all cylinders, I think.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
it's really good. It's the opening cutscene is great. Um they're like setting the explosives, and I think Dutch is like, can you fucking do this a little bit faster, please, because we're about to all die. And Mickey's just like, this ain't a job you want to rush. Like he's like priming explosive devices so they can blow this bridge. Like it's pretty good. I really like that, like half the bridge is done and then you have to come in and do the other half yourself, like as the player. Like you walk one by one to each of the charges and arm them all.
Hmm.
um
You have like an optional fight with hunters behind you, right? Are they like putting pressure on you, or is that what it is?
there's like wraiths and I think hunters crossing the bridge slowly. Yeah, there's a lot
Mm,
of, I mean, there's, the chaos is just like there are ghosts flying, or not ghosts, banshees flying overhead.
hmm.
It's just a cool like mission. They really sell the chaos here.
I think
um
banshees are a type of ghost, just like wraith is a type of ghost.
you mean like in the like the root
And
of the word, in
yeah, and
the
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 definition
definitional
sense.
sense? Yeah. uh
And I think a banshee, I think a ghost is a type of banshee.
Oh yes. Okay. So it's flowing back and forth now. So what are the other, I don't even remember what the other, are there any other vehicles that the Covenant have? That what's the one that's like a three-seater?
I
A
hate that one.
chopper, a chopper is not a type of ghost.
Yeah, they once the brutes got introduced, they were like, "We're done with this ghost shit."
What are the dropships called?
Pelican, or no, yeah, all the human ones are like insects or just animals because warthog is not
Okay,
insect.
yeah, but what is not a
Uh,
pelican is also not an insect.
yeah,
What is, no, the Covenant dropship?
birds are insects. I don't remember.
How are we not
Uh,
how are we not on this?
let me see. This is really entertaining for the listener.
I bet.
Uh, Phantom, is that it?
I guess that is a kind of ghost as well.
And a ghost is a type of phantom.
I don't know that I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I do either.
I
I'm
feel
just
like I feel
saying
like ghost
words.
would be like the root, and then everything else would be like a subcategory, you know. So
Mm,
like a phantom, I guess a phantom is a ghost, but a
Banshee feels like
ghost.
an older word than ghost, though, to me.
Why would you assume that?
Banshee seems like a word you would see in like a really old ass book, but if you were reading like the Bible and it said ghost, you would laugh.
Yeah, but that's because that's before they knew what ghosts were, but they knew what banshees were.
Yeah, that's why I feel like Banshee's like a root word. Or maybe not root word,
Just
but
because
like I
something
feel
is
like
older, that
Banshee's.
doesn't mean it's the root, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like they
I
hadn't
didn't
they
go to
hadn't
I
they
didn't go to
hadn't
college, so
they hadn't conceptualized ghosts yet. So like somebody
Um,
was like, "That's definitely a banshee," and then many years later, somebody was like, "Is this a ghost?" And they're
Now I want
like,
to know what
"Wait,
every Covenant vehicle is
now
called.
is a banshee a type of ghost?" You know?
This wiki is horrible. I'm over this. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't. I'm. We can move on. Apparently, they also have something called the spirit, which I would say is has too many definitions. Isn't always a ghost. You know?
Yeah.
What would you
Um,
say? Would you say a lich is a ghost?
a lich is like a. Isn't a lich like a living? No, I don't know. What is a lich?
I
That's
mean,
like a word that they've probably used in Elder Scrolls, right? Like
yeah, I mean they're
I don't
definitely
know.
supernatural, but it says it's a
Is a
type
lich
of
a vehicle?
it's an undead creature. So ghosts are not undead; they're dead.
And they're not creatures, right? Are
That's
a
true.
ghost is
They're
usually a person? No.
doesn't have to be, but a ghost is a
Is a
ghost.
person a creature?
What's the value of life? I guess humans are creatures. Yeah,
So humans could be spirit. No, no, that's not the word we were talking about. Lich. Humans could be liches?
I think anything. Yeah, sure, anything could be a lich. I guess. I think, but the key difference is that liches are like brought back to life. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Whereas like a ghost isn't brought back to life; it's still dead. It's just a projection.
Mm.
Anyway, so you arm the charges on the bridge. And um, it's pretty cool. I like that you fight your way back towards Oni Alpha, and you get to push the button to blow everything up yourself as the
Mhm.
player, which I think is nice. I think maybe in other games they would have made it a cutscene. Um, and this game is basically just like full retreat, like or this mission is full retreat. Like you just keep fighting your way deeper into the Oni facility, which I think is designed really nicely. It's like literally all like brutalist concrete looking structures, but for some reason they have like really zen outdoor spaces in between them.
Yeah. A
Um,
scarab isn't a ghost.
a scarab
Sorry.
is a scarab is definitely not a ghost.
I'm
Um,
done. I promise. Yeah. Brutalist
that's
architecture.
probably why scarabs are like one of the weakest of all the Covenant designs. Like who designed something that way? Like here's a gigantic like they have the power to just glass a planet from orbit. Why the fuck are they making like a four-legged like tank thing that like marches through the city? I mean, I feel like they could have come up with something better. Why doesn't it at least hover, you know?
Yeah, this is like always this is like one of the reasons that um I always appreciated like the vehicle design in like Half-Life because anytime you see something that is like that, the answer is this was a living thing that has been retrofitted into a vehicle. Uh
Right.
Whereas in this game, yeah, it doesn't like it's like the spider from Wild Wild West. It's
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
there's no it just exists because it's fun.
Yeah, they really like kill any interest in scarabs in this game also.
Yeah.
Because they show up like a dime a dozen and don't do anything. Like at no point
Hmm.
do you have to fight one. And I remember remember that part where they show up and they're like shooting at you from a scarab and then they just leave. It's pretty weird.
It
Like,
has better things to do.
yeah, yeah. The game's just very. I don't know. Scarabs kind of always sucked. I think that first like introduction to them in two is like pretty interesting just due to the scale of them. And then by three, you're just killing one every like 13 seconds. So it's like who even cares? Um, yeah, definitely not a ghost.
Although a scarab, I don't think is a real thing. I think it's like a term used to describe a dung beetle.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
fiction. Yeah, they're
yeah.
fiction.
So maybe there is some sort of like maybe a scarab is technically like a spirit variant, part of the ghost root word umbrella.
I mean, I guess the one thing tying all of the Covenant vehicles together is that they're all supernatural, right?
Yeah, so scarab is the ghost of a beetle.
Then what would be its juice?
Juice.
Yeah, Beetlejuice. Isn't he like a ghost, or is he like a
Um,
zombie?
I think he just looks like that.
Oh, oh, he's just a little freak.
Yeah, he's just a guy.
Oh, huh. That's weird.
That's I think that's how that.
He's just a guy with a wife that's like 3 feet taller than him. Good for
You know,
him,
I
man.
actually haven't finished that movie.
I don't. I don't know that there's any reason to, or any reason to talk about it. this is this has gone incredibly off the rails. I think the next time
You brought it back to Scarab the second
I
time.
did. You're right. The next time we do one of these, we're gonna change the format because clearly talking through every mission is becoming too difficult. We're looking for literally anything else to talk about. We're like, all right, so I don't know how the bonfire side chat guys do it. How do they? How do
This is
they?
literally what they do.
It
Every
is.
episode
It's
is
true.
this.
It's true. But
Yeah,
how could they possibly care this much about each and everything that happens in every level? It's pretty unbelievable.
because those games are filled with things like this.
It's true.
Like that's one of the primary appeals of them is
Filled with
that everything.
scarabs.
Yeah, there's just those games are endlessly just weird shit.
Lots
Yeah,
of ghosts in them too.
yeah, and phantoms
Yeah.
and banshees and
Not Beetlejuice, but
yeah,
okay, so
yeah,
you so you fight your way back through the Oni site. I like the architecture.
yeah. It's
I'm a
cool.
big I'm a big fan of brutalism. I don't know. Even though it's like
R/brutalism.
yeah, baby's first architectural interest, but I think it looks nice. It looks nice. It's a nice contrast to the rest of the city too, which is like I don't know, very modern looking, you know?
Hmm.
It looks like the worst condos you've ever seen in Chicago. And then there's this which is like a squat like 3 or 4 story like concrete square. Kind of like it. And it's on an island. What's up with that? This whole structure is on an island in the middle of the city. Why did they design it that way? It's so funny. It's just like, you know how you make something more secure? You fucking put it in a lake. I mean, they're drawing. Imagine every single time in the real world there's a CIA building. It's like a fortress surrounded by a moat. It draws a little bit too much attention to itself, doesn't it? Like, why would the Office of Naval Intelligence secret fucking headquarters be the most obvious building in the whole city?
I got nothing.
Those
I have more to say about whatever the fuck we were talking about for the last 20 minutes.
Hey man, I'm just trying to listen. Come on.
Maybe it's in the books.
John Halo needs to hire me so I can make their shit make more sense. All right. Yeah,
NMPD.
probably the what happened to old Mombasa, you know? Um
What happened to Old York?
well, it's in England. It's still there. You fucking idiot.
Oh. Is that true?
Yes. Um
I don't know if that's common knowledge, but if you insist.
that's common knowledge, man.
Okay. Yeah,
Right
New Yorker
in.
has entered the chat.
Readers, right in.
It was the first thing you learned when you moved to New York.
It is.
And now
Yeah,
everyone has to know it.
When you land with your belongings, they hand you a clipboard and they're like, answer this quiz about New York.
They hand you one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that says Old York is in England.
Yeah, New York is
And then
here.
they ask you to hand it back because they got to
Yeah.
show somebody else it.
When you land, they're like, did you mean to go to Old York and you ended up in New York by mistake? And you're like, no, I meant to come here. And they're like, all right, great.
They send the other people back onto the plane.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so you so you fight back through the Oni headquarters. I think one of the better parts of this is at the very end when you're making that last stand because you're about to blow the building up. You remember that? You're like in that like weird room that has three elevators for some reason and they face each other and it's like a glass floor above like a bottomless pit.
This is the point in the game where you start to really realize that the human architecture is just a different thing entirely in this universe.
Yeah, they've eschewed all basis of logic. Certainly, I mean it's like
Buildings are designed by game designers.
yes, I mean yeah, it's true. Um, they should have hired a architecture consultant like Red Faction Gorilla. Um,
Is that
anyway,
true?
they did. Yeah, they did. They make a big deal about like hiring building engineers so the materials make sense.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Anyway, um, so yeah, you make this like little last stand because like you're continuously being pushed deeper into the facility by the Covenant because they're just such an overwhelming force that you're forced to fall back. And you end up in this little weird room holding out for a while that's got like a what like a turret in the middle. Um, and yeah, I don't know this mission is just it's Halo at its best. The only thing it's missing is a vehicle section,
But
but
we'll get that soon.
yeah, well, yeah, and it's cool. I really uh, I like the dynamic between Mickey and Dutch. They're just constantly like prodding each other, and yeah, you place charges, you destroy the Oni headquarters, so the Covenant can't recover any vital intelligence, um, and you fly away on a pelican,
Mhm.
which is not a ghost.
I'm sure there are pelican ghosts.
You say sure very assuredly, which I'm concerned about.
Well, we established that a creature doesn't have to be a human, and a lich is a type of creature, so there are pelican liches, right?
Are we just operating under the assumption that ghosts are real?
No, I don't believe in ghosts, but I try to learn as much about my friends as possible so that I can talk to them about things like this. And I know a few people that believe in ghosts, so
I would say most people I know believe in ghosts,
that's yeah.
which
Oh, what a
is
weird thing to.
yeah, it's pretty strange. So I should
Yeah.
just go down the list. I'd be like, do you believe in wraiths? What about banshees? What about liches? My big argument is that like if somebody believes in ghosts, they absolutely must believe in vampires
Mm, why?
because logically they make about the same amount of sense.
Yeah, I guess the yeah. I don't know. Mm, this is I'm gonna steer us back onto track.
So the next
I
the
don't. All
next
right,
mission.
here's the thing. I just don't. I feel like I know less about the supernatural quality of vampires than I do about like the I eat humans or eat human blood aspect of vampires. So I don't know like which movies they have more adjacencies to ghosts and which ones they don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like a vampire means something wildly different like every iteration that it's in. Whereas like I feel like ghosts are pretty much the same thing in every take, right? No.
I mean, no, because sometimes you have Casper, and sometimes you have Ghost Ship.
Ev- Every every ghost movie is either Casper or Ghost Ship.
Yeah. So like Oculus, for instance, is Ghost Ship, but Ghostbusters is Casper.
Uh what is what video game are we talking about?
See, actually, there's a secret third category that is the Blair Witch Project.
You want to talk about ghosts so bad. Wait, is there actually any ghosts in the first Blair Witch Project though?
Is there?
I didn't see that movie. I just know what happens in that movie, and I know that there's doubt about if there is a ghost in that movie,
You should
or a
probably
wraith,
you should
or a
probably
banshee.
you should probably watch that movie.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
so the next mission, you play as Romeo, um, which I like because I like sniper rifles.
Yeah.
You start out
Especially in
with a
this
sniper
game.
rifle. Yeah, it's funny. There's a part. So the cutscene opens, and you like you're at NMPD headquarters, and you're on a Pelican launch pad at the headquarters trying to get a ride out of there, I guess, or something. Who even fucking knows anymore? And some banshees fly by and blow up the Pelican that's like parked on the pad. And in that cutscene, Romeo like uses his sniper rifle and fires off like 3 shots
Hmm.
um at the Pelican. And then when you start the level, you start out with 3 shots missing, which I
Nice.
think is a level of attention to detail that I absolutely must respect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I wish it showed up in some other areas, but yeah, it's really cool in this moment. I
But
definitely didn't notice that. Well, I
see,
didn't
how
notice that because I wasn't able to watch the cutscenes before this, but yeah, that's
what? That's
cool.
not true.
What's not true?
What do you mean you weren't? Oh, you mean you weren't? You couldn't watch them as a refresher. I see. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't even get that far, but I just remembered
Mm.
that because it's cool as hell,
Mm.
and also it
Okay.
affects you in a gameplay level because you need to reload. You know.
Mm. True.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen, man, folks. Do I need to demonstrate any more that this man is just not paying attention? How are we supposed to take his opinion seriously when he didn't notice the 3 missing shots? I
Oh my
mean, come
goodness.
on. Anyway, vote for Halo ODST as the best of the Halo games.
Yeah. At this
So
point, you're making fun of your own point.
I know I absolutely am. So this mission, I think this mission's cool because it's primarily it's a change of scenery. It takes place entirely in the rooftops. Actually, I will say that's kind of a big point in favor of this game in general. Every mission has drastically different scenery
Hmm.
than previously, which I think is cool, especially because they all take place in roughly the same few square miles, right? So I think um, major ups to the level designers in that sense. Like it's I like the diversity and um, in this particular mission, you run along the rooftops, um, just eliminating Covenant until you can get to a nearby other helipad where the crashed Pelican is that just got shot down.
Hmm.
Um, and that's, I mean, I think in in particular, this mission has a few of my favorite things in it. One is that last stand around the Pelican, where you have all those like Spartan lasers and rocket launchers, and um, you have to like fend off against all the banshees and vehicles and stuff coming in, and then like um, phantoms will like swoop in and drop off like a bunch of soldiers on the same building that you're on, and you have to kill them. Um,
Yeah, it's like it's kind of I think it might be like one of the more exciting like sequences in the game.
yeah,
The way that this like the pacing of it and everything, it's really fun with like the Spartan lasers and like the cannons and um yeah, I like this moment a lot actually.
yeah, it's great, and I think it's funny because it sort of does further reduce the difference between um, Spartans and ODST because like you're picking up that really heavy like rocket launcher thing that it takes like 2 hands. You know what I'm talking about? It's like the big tube missile launcher that like locks on.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Same with like the minigun turret things. You can just pick those up whenever you want and use them. It's just kind of silly. I mean, Like, what even is a Spartan anymore? um, but yeah, I mean, it's still really cool, and it's an enjoyable kind of sequence, and it leads to probably the best cutscene in the game, which is um, the one where that brute with the hammer shows up and like knocks everybody over, and then he like weirdly turns off the gravity portion of his gravity hammer and just stabs that dude in the chest.
Mhm.
Which is like, why didn't he just use the gravity portion and like turn him like fucking turn his bones into jelly or something? Why did he even bother using the
Well,
sharp end? But
because then that character would be dead, and we wouldn't get to learn about the insulation canisters.
it's true. They could have. I mean, yeah, it's true. It's still. I
Unless they
mean,
could, unless they can use that stuff to put together a person that has
his
been,
bones.
um, yeah.
They actually just shoot it straight into his bones, and it fills up all of his bones, and then turns them back into solid form.
Well, the implication is that it's like filling up his lung, right, or something, because he's like his lung is collapsed.
I guess it's at least covering the hole because it's his lung was pierced. So I guess if you just covered up that spot, maybe it'd be fine. I don't know. It,
Also, this is immediately followed by maybe the most violent sequence in any of these games.
I would agree. Yeah, where they like all jump on the back of this brute and just start fucking cutting its throat.
Yeah, it's
It's pretty weird.
weirdly like visceral in
Yeah.
comparison to everything else. It's only matched by you punching Commander Keyes' face
Yeah, true. Yeah, and then
in
just
the
taking his
first game.
shit out, dude. I like how the two most intense things are killing one single brute and absolutely decimating the face of your commanding officer with your fist. The two most memorable Halo moments so far.
Hmm.
Um yeah, no, it's
I
ridiculous.
also need to congratulate you because your trivia about the three bullets makes no appearance in this wiki whatsoever. So you are the only person who has played this game and noticed that.
Is that true? Is
Yeah,
really?
literally nobody else has noticed that before.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I was like, this is going to be in the trivia. Nope.
What? That's insane.
Good on you. You need to write for wikis.
Huh. Wow. That's fucked up. Especially because like they have all
I
this
did I
shit.
did Command F on excuse me, Control F. I'm on my PC on the number 3 and the letter and the word 3.
No, you're right. I'm reading through the. I read through the entire trivia section just now, and
Yeah.
it's funny because it's like they have shit like fucking Romeo's afraid of heights,
Yeah.
but
It's
they
not even
don't.
trivia, it's just a thing that they show.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny because it says maybe he may
Like,
be afraid of heights.
I love how trivia in movie and games is either something really interesting or something that is just told or something that just happens.
It's just this is just a fucking fabrication.
Or a lie, just a straight up.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, who wouldn't be afraid of crossing? Like, there's a part where you have to cross like a between two buildings using like a crane of like
Yeah, yeah.
material. Who
I
wouldn't be
don't yeah.
scared by that? You don't need to be afraid of heights to be like, I don't like this.
Yeah, I don't think afraid of heights is necessarily having to cross like yeah, I
Some some big idiot shit right there. Anyway, so whoever wrote this wiki section needs to one pay more attention and two stop making things up. Moving on.
big secret I wrote the wiki.
Fuck, dude.
That's why I didn't notice the three bullets.
I always knew you were a sicko. Um, the next mission is um the last of the good missions. Um, it does have it has a lot of good points and has some kind of whatever points. I think you probably really like it because this is the mission where you get to fly around in banshees. I know how much you feel
Yeah.
about. I know how good you feel about ghosts in general, but more importantly, about how you like flying missions. So
I don't. I don't necessarily always like flying missions. I like the Banshees. If I remember right, flying the Hornets sucks shit, but I don't remember.
It wasn't great.
Um,
Yeah, it wasn't great.
but the Banshees are interesting because there aren't a lot of things in games that I think feel quite like them. It's kind of an interesting like thing that you really only get from Halo.
You know what's funny about Halo vehicles is that they all move really slowly.
Yeah,
Like Banshees
yeah,
fly at a speed that should be impossible. I mean, I guess that's why it's alien future shit, but like you as a Banshee, you can fly at like 1 mile per hour. You could fly like slower than a pedestrian is walking if you want to. And
yeah.
max speed for a Banshee is like 15 miles per
I mean, they like when they're not boosting, it's really just like a helicopter in the way it moves, right? Other than being able to like do somersaults and shit. But like,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
yeah,
But helicopters move fast, which I think is something that people don't realize.
yeah.
Banshee moves.
Helicopters scare me. I don't know if I've ever brought that up, but
I
I
mean,
went on a helicopter once and I was
they're
terrified.
covered in knives, so
Yeah.
or I guess more like swords, really.
A helicopter is a type of sword.
Absolutely, it has a bunch of swords.
Um, we've gone completely insane.
So, so Kikawani Station. I didn't know this level was called that.
My other favorite sushi
Yeah,
sushi
Kikawani
shop.
Station is. I guess it makes sense because you're going to the train station. That's kind of the point.
I also
They
regret
think
saying that. That word is almost certainly not Japanese.
I don't know, man. I'm not an expert, not a linguist. So
Yeah.
anyway, the mission begins basically having been stabbed in the chest by a really friendly brute who, for some reason, did not just vaporize him. Romeo is dying of bad lung, and so they they stop outside of the train station to fill his lung full of liquid, something that is no doubt apparently better than just having a bad lung is having one that's now full of foam. Um I don't know.
They should have presented this as that thing is not actually meant for that. That's just some shit that he like found on the street and figured that it would work and it ends up working.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like not
like
actually
it's
it's like auto it's like an auto accessory.
it'd be like caulking your wound. Like
Yeah.
like you found like a tube of caulk next to a bathtub and you're like I should use this to fucking put in this cut that I have. Yeah. It's pretty silly, but I looks really cool. I like the sound too. It's got like a good
Mhm.
like whoosh, and like fills up and I don't know. It's funny because he seems immediately better.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just like
I,
back. He's just like back to it. He's like, all right, I'm good. I
yeah,
don't know.
they should invent something like that in real life.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, I would eat it probably at some point.
It does look like a
Whipped cream.
yeah, it's like a whipped cream canister
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
Um
Does that mean
they
you
found
can?
this in a bakery.
Yeah, maybe they thought what they were gonna do was get him high off of the CO2 to stop the pain, but then it accidentally filled up the wound in the progress, and they were like, "Ah, cool,
We're gonna inject this directly into his lung,
yeah,
and he's gonna get super fucking high and not
exactly."
even worry about the fact that he can't breathe.
It's space morphine. So, so I think Buck's idea here is to take the train station to escape the city. Um, but within 13 seconds of playing in this level, they realize that the train station is completely flooded. um, likely so the Covenant could stop people from escaping the city. Um, it's pretty cool. It's also pretty wild how is this I mean they kind of imply that this is supposed to be underground, but like it's big enough for gigantic flying vehicles to like fly through and then still have plenty of space, you know?
Yeah, it's real video gamey.
This is the most open train station anything's ever been, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting.
Hmm.
Um Yeah, I don't have much to say. It is cool. I like the visuals here. Like I like that there's just like flooded water, like just filling at pretty much everywhere you go, which is why you fly most areas, and then you can kind of land on like really high up portions and get out and open the doors so the rest of the squad can get through and stuff. It's cool. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's neat.
it is
It
cool.
was like a good mix of like Banshee, like aerial combat and like ground combat. You spend a lot of time like using the Banshee to shoot down other Banshees and then like turning it on like nearby ground enemies who are firing fucking rockets and shit at you.
What do you imagine the flying interface of a Banshee is? Because we never see it. Is it a you get in there and it's like two handles, or is it like a
If I'm being honest, it's probably like yeah, like two joysticks with like a hologram touchscreen thing.
I almost think it's like all a hologram. Like you are just like you're just sort of like your hands are wrapped around like a big dome thing that you mm,
Like a boob. What are you talking about?
maybe it's two boobs.
That's kind of what I was thinking originally.
Oh,
But
okay.
but I
I
was
don't
like,
think of boobs as joysticks, but
well,
uh
no, I just
that's
I that's
cool.
what I was thinking originally, but I didn't say it.
Uh
But now we're here anyway, so I'm owning up to it.
okay. I won't make us
um
continue with this. It
I
was
think
just a thought I had.
so what if it was like a globe, but it could spin in any direction, you know? You know how a
It's like
globe
two
usually
of those.
spins.
Oh, it's like those old mouse wheels.
Exactly. Or
Like
like a golden tea machine. Like golden tea,
it's
the golf arcade game that has like the ball that you roll, you know?
it's just two of those like Tesla glass ball things that you get from Spencer's.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. But do you roll them? Do you spin them or does the electro portion control the ship?
Um doesn't somebody like mention that they need special training to fly them? Uh
Yes. Yeah, in this mission somebody's like, "A phantom buck? I don't remember how to fly this shit. I've done the simulations, blah blah blah."
oh yeah, Phantom, not a Banshee. Although their
Then
interface, you would imagine they would be similar.
yeah, but then the rookie wordlessly climbs into a banshee and defends everyone. So he's the Chad in this situation.
Yeah, it can't be that hard.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Good mission.
there's something to think about, listener.
Yeah. Valuable information. Good mission. I really think I think the heights of these last few missions make the following lows that much lower. But it's still the best Halo game.
Hmm.
Other than maybe one. I would say one and this are like equal
Yeah.
in quality.
It always feels weird to compare a game to like its first iteration. Uh I'm trying to think of other examples where like a second game or like a preceding game is like better.
Call of
Uh
Duty, a lot of people think Call of Duty 4 is the best. They're wrong, but they can think that.
hmm,
It's actually one.
really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
The original Call of Duty is the best Call of Duty.
I don't think I played one. I think I
2
played
is
probably
also
two and four.
two's great.
And yeah.
Two's a great game.
Yeah.
Um, I think the reason that you always compare, I mean, whatever. Like most, to be honest, a lot of the Halo games have are pretty different from each other. Um, but I think the reason that I always end up going back to one as being my favorite is because of like it feels so unique. Like it feels like one stands apart from every other game in terms of like game feel. Like it could
Yeah.
just be because it's old. I mean, shooters were made different in 2001 than they were in 2009, right? But there's something about like the minute to minute gameplay in Halo 1 feels special even now. Whereas like as we've kind of highlighted with these last few episodes, 2, 3, ODST, all like minute to minute feel pretty similar. Um, which is why they become increasingly hard to talk about. I think Reach will be pretty unique, and then 4 is developed by a totally different team and feels very different.
Well, the initial encounter with the Covenant and Reach is like canonically the first time that uh humans encounter them, right?
Yeah, it's from what I understand. Yeah, I mean,
Uh
that's how they place it in the timeline anyway.
to me, because we like played that, the first encounter in the first Halo feels way more like it's the first. I mean, it's the first
Yeah,
game that anybody played, but
yeah.
something about like that first level feels more like the first encounter with the
Just like,
Covenant.
damn. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair. Well, actually, that kind of makes sense though because Halo 1 takes place like a day after Reach.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So
I don't know why I asked you if that's true. You're gonna follow up and be like, no,
yeah,
I was just saying that.
you know what's funny? Also, the origin of humanity on Earth is actually that it's described in Halo lore.
Is that true?
Yes,
Wow. I wonder if that's in the wiki.
it must be. Yeah, it's well trodden ground at this point. But yeah, humans used to be a really advanced spacefaring species, and then they interacted with the Forerunners, who did not like humans for some reason, or a particular subset of Forerunners didn't. And
Yeah.
so they got into like a massive war, which humanity lost, and their punishment was to be made stupid and put on a planet. So they like took away all their technology and made them like barbarians on Earth, essentially.
What I got from all of that is that the root word ghost comes from the first encounter of the Covenant and not whatever it actually is.
Oh, that's fair. I could see that. Although the Covenant didn't exist because all those races were also. Or do you mean like during Reach? You mean
Yeah,
like during
yeah,
Reach was like the first
yeah,
time
yeah,
anybody had ever thought of what a ghost is?
yeah, yeah.
Like, damn, this thing is like spectral. It moves, it glides like an undead creature of sorts. Except they're not creatures or undead.
They're vehicles.
Like a wisp of the soul. Hmm. Much to ponder.
In many ways, Halo is the most introspective lore of any media.
So Data Hive is the worst level of this entire game.
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about here. Actually,
Um,
this didn't happen.
it's the infamous level that has to occur in every single Halo game where you wander around an identical looking labyrinth for 30 minutes wondering why you're playing this. It happened in Halo 1 and was notoriously maligned by us in that episode. It happens multiple times in Halo 2. I think it happens like twice in Halo 2.
They have to have
Um,
some sort of internal awareness of this, whether it be like a joke or something that they actually lament.
if
Uh,
you if you like these missions, if you're a person who likes these missions, let me know. I want to meet you. I
come
let
out so
tell
that
me.
come out so that we may judge you.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Um I like can't believe anybody finds this to be fun or a good idea. You wander around in the dark fighting enemies for a really long time. I mean, some of the combat situations in this are pretty fun, but they go on for too long. They're too monotonous. They bring the bugs back in a major way, which are probably the least fun enemy to fight in any Halo game. It's just not a good level. It's just not a good level. And then you do this for like 30 minutes and then you get to the end and you're like, what was all this for? And then it turns out Captain Dare has a crush on a tentacle monster because it might be able to tell her where the fuck the brutes are digging their big hole and why,
Mhm.
in the middle of the desert in Halo 3. And that's literally the entire reason for all of this to occur. And that was the original mission that Dare did not tell Buck about. Um,
Yeah, and then she berates you for killing them without having the information to have not done so,
yeah. Yeah, she's like, you haven't,
which is weird as shit to me.
yeah, she's like to Buck, she's like, you haven't been killing them, have you? And he's like, of course not. Yeah, it's pretty silly. So that was the line of dialogue you were talking about. That, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's more supposed to be played up for laughs, but it's not funny. It's just dumb.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
even the premise of it. I don't like. I'm not saying that it's like dumb that this would happen. I'm saying that the way that she words it is dumb. Like,
Yeah,
does she actually say you haven't been killing them? Have you?
I'm pretty sure, right? Pretty
Like,
sure that's right.
yeah, I'm not gonna belabor this, but I think it's very stupid. I mean, I get that maybe it's intended to be like a is it like a top secret sort of thing? I mean, even in that it
Yeah,
doesn't make sense as a top secret thing either to me. There's no reason to keep that secret, right? I mean, what's gonna happen if people know? Uh, I mean, maybe the idea is that like if they're not killing them, then like I don't even know. I
yeah. I mean, I guess like maybe she thought that since they weren't directly like harming anyone, they might not have shot one. I don't know. It
yeah.
doesn't make much sense.
Well, she knows that they're providing them shields, right?
You know, I don't know actually. I'm not really sure. That's a good
Hmm.
question. I don't know that they ever directly imply that she well no yeah they do because she knows that they're providing them she knows that they're getting a shield themselves from it. Don't they
Hey,
mention that?
she can understand them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true, which is weird.
Yeah.
um yeah, she says, okay, I was literally reading through a transcript of the dialogue just so I could get to this part.
Mm.
Okay. This engineer knows what the Covenant is after. If I could safely capture more of them, I would. What they know can win the war. And Buck goes, oh. And she goes, you haven't killed any of them, have you? No. Well, maybe one or two. That's how that goes. And then she says, in parentheses, sarcastically, nice work.
Yeah, that's what I remembered it being, and it's just like the way that she says it is such a weird.
Yeah,
Like
because
it
how is
just
he supposed to?
instantly made me hate her as a character.
Yeah, I mean,
Honestly,
I guess the point being like he's like a shoot first, ask questions later kind of soldier. But I mean, like, aren't most soldiers? Why would she expect anything else?
there hasn't been a single hint in this entire like altercation that anything is like shows like any mercy to humans. I don't
Yeah,
know, like yeah, yeah, whatever. It's less to do with that and more that I don't think that this is like information that needs to be withheld. Like, what's the actual reason that she wouldn't tell them? You know, like what's gonna happen if she tells them?
yeah. I mean, I guess it would be. I guess it must be just that it's top secret. That's literally it.
Mm, yeah. Well, okay.
Sean
What?
isn't satisfied. No, I agree. It's silly.
Yeah.
I think it's. I think you're taking this much more seriously than even the writers of this were taking it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this level sucks. It really puts. It's sad that this is the last on foot mission in this game because it's really bad. The next mission also sucks. You literally drive a warthog down the highway really slowly next to a gigantic truck that they're all in to
I thought
escort
you
the
said that you liked this earlier on. I
rubbery
remember you
thing.
saying that you thought this was good.
No,
Oh, you must have been talking about something else. Yeah, I don't like this either.
no,
This
this is
is
bad. No,
this is
this is bad.
horribly anticlimactic.
It's extremely anticlimactic. Nothing really happens. It's not difficult. They don't throw enough enemies at you for it to feel chaotic at all. And again, all vehicles in Halo drive at a maximum of 5 miles per hour. So there's no sense of speed.
This would have been a good moment for like some new like vehicle asset or something that just like something that like wasn't present anywhere else but is like super fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um yeah, it's real flat.
They could have done better. They have done better. Most of the vehicle sequences at the end of Halo games can be pretty hit or miss in terms
mhm.
of like how fun they really are, but the sense of speed is usually there. You know what I mean? Or the sense of stakes is usually there. Like in Halo 1 when the whole place is blowing up and you're trying to get the fuck out, that shit feels desperate. Like it feels like you're really about to die. In this, it's just like a leisurely drive along a coastal highway.
It should have what it should have been, in my opinion, is like you're encountering all these scarabs, right? And this is like that funny scene we're talking about where one is like fighting you for a moment. I don't know if this was just maybe I don't know if the AI was is it I don't know if it's like scripted to do that, but it's like shooting at you for a bit and then it just kind of leaves. What they should have done was have you destroy like five scarabs or just do like a huge amount of damage or something instead of it just being like a tank. Where you're not really doing much. You're just like shooting more Covenant vehicles and
Or they should have had you all driving fast enough that the scarabs can't keep up, so you just get away, right?
or
I
you
mean, like,
steal a scarab. That would have been
sure,
pretty cool.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
It could be literally anything other than what it is. I mean, it's just really boring.
Or you like fly a ghost? No. What's the you fly one of the
Phantom.
yeah, you fly a phantom for the first time in the
I mean, it is
series.
a
That could have been
ghost,
cool.
so
Yeah,
um,
that could have been cool.
yeah, anything. I mean, they could have done anything, and they chose this, and it either they had time or budget constraints, or they just for some reason thought this would be a fun way to end it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
I think
it's
this is circling back to what I was saying earlier about I don't entirely feel this way about the whole experience, but this is one of the couple things in this game where it's like weirdly I really don't want to use the word lazy because I don't think it's like lazy, it's just like weirdly flat. Um
yeah.
and feels very like padding. The fact that the ending feels like padding is extremely strange to me. Um but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just funny. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, the middle of this game is so bombastic and exciting, and like so much cool stuff happens, and then you get to the end, and it's like, like it's like
Mhm.
powering down. It's like, all right, here it is.
And you don't want to feel that way at this point of the game. This should be like where like the craziest shit is happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you're like holding your breath the whole time.
Yeah, it
The most memorable endings of games feel that way to me.
agreed. Yeah, it makes the whole experience feel lesser because the last few missions are bad.
Hmm.
Um,
And I don't necessarily think that the ending of a game necessarily like dictates that like the overall experience is dragged down, but it's like the last thing you experience, so
yeah.
it just like kind of leaves you feeling a little bit weird about everything that you've accomplished.
Now there is
Um,
one really cool part.
yeah, agreed.
After you drive down the highway, you get out at the zoo again, and you hold out in like this. It's a firefight map actually.
Mhm.
At the very end, and it's really cool. It's just you're back against the wall, and the enemy, like a bunch of wraiths show up. A bunch of I think what they send hunters at you as well, and it's just a lot of brutes with jetpacks and just swarms of Covenant, and you just hold out, and it's great. It's really cool. They give you a bunch of fun weapons to play with if you want,
Mhm.
kind of spread around. And it's neat. I really like it. This would have been one of those another good moment where they could have killed a character but just chose not to. I think now's the
Yeah.
time. Now's the time to reveal that everyone survives, including the rookie, the character you play as, who then dies in a book later
Oh, great.
or something.
Okay.
I don't
So
think I
do
read
they
that.
in the book do they say, "Oh, sad jazz music is playing"?
They do.
Uh,
Yeah, they do.
imagine sad jazz.
No, yeah, yeah. They none of the other characters' fates that I know of are revealed, but the rookie does die later on in a separate uh, event that I think, yeah, it just occurs like in a novel randomly or is just referenced somewhere. Um,
Hmm. I almost um I almost wish that you played as one of the characters that you meet in this. Um I don't hate silent protagonists on a whole, but I think that I'm sure what they were going for is that you're just spectating things happening with other people, and that's sort of like works for like you're like a soldier on the ground. You're part of the ODST, so you're just sort of like viewing these stories from an outside perspective. But I think in this particular game, maybe I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more if you were one of the characters. Um,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I don't. again, it's something that like I can understand why you would feel that way, but doesn't
Mhm.
affect my enjoyment really at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think this is Halo distilled to its purest interest to me, which is the gameplay is like firing on all cylinders for most of the game, with some tonal and artistic additions that I find personally interesting, like the soundtrack being jazzy and kind of low key and smoky compared to a lot of the really loud, obnoxious guitar stuff and all the other soundtracks.
Hmm.
Lately, especially, I think Halo 1 has another really good soundtrack, but that's because it leans more into the weird electronic side of things. And then they get, with Halo 2 and 3, they get orchestral with a mix of like guitar solo shit that it just isn't as much for me. This was a big like return to like, oh man, this 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 is to me the most listenable soundtrack start to finish for sure. Um,
Yeah, I agree with that. I haven't listened to it on its own, but I agree. There's like a few tracks in particular that I remember really, really liking.
yeah,
I'll have to do that after this.
and artistically, like visually, um, everything about this game is certainly my favorite in that regard. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I
it's
agree.
it's cool.
I wish the gameplay kind of reflected that a little bit more. I kind of would have wanted them to like push those buttons a little bit more, but I do think I agree. I think the artistic aspects of it are really the highlights. Um, they're
Yeah,
really what like save the game for me as being like a unique experience to all the others. Um, yeah, I I I didn't come out of it like hating it. I don't think I'm as like fond of it as you are, but I do appreciate it, and I like what they were trying to do for sure.
there's a there's like a little pointless post credit sequence where um Sergeant Johnson is shown because they just killed him in the previous game and they need to give the fans what they want. They know what the fans like. Um and he and the alien sit down and have a talk, have a chat, and the alien lights a cigar, which I think is really cute. It like flicks his like Zippo lighter or whatever. It's nice little
Does she
touch.
say that they're flammable?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Because remember they have big bombs strapped to them. So
Yeah, but I thought that that was I thought that that's something that they're like retrofit, like not that the way that it's said is that they themselves are flammable, like not
I,
that.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's made necessarily clear. I mean, maybe they emit like a gas or something that's like highly flammable, or it could just be the bomb. It could just be that
Yeah, yeah.
they have like a bunch of explosives strapped to them. But either way, yeah, she does mention that, and they don't make it clear. I don't think in this whether the explosives have been removed or not. So
I
it
mean,
makes
many
it.
things in the Halo universe are flammable. I mean, the grunts are technically,
Yeah, they have
well,
those
no,
like
they don't catch fire,
methane.
but they're, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. That seems cute. Um,
So rate Halo 3 ODST on the infinite scale. -10 to +10, 0 being neutral or average.
uh, hmm, man, how do I how do I do this? How do I break the news? No, it's probably like a five. It's
Wow,
probably
that's
like
really
a.
high.
I don't want to say it's like neutral. It's just, and I mean, it's good because like it's better in some ways than the other games, in my opinion. I mean, you think it's like better than them on a whole. I don't. I mean, not better than one, but like I don't agree with that personally. Just because maybe I just look for something different out of these games. But yeah, it's slightly above neutral for me. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. Let me. Where do you place this? Have you written a review about this?
I don't think so. I
Oh,
don't think so. I think Halo games are difficult to review because they are such like a conflicting mix of like strong positives and negatives, and
well, I felt like this game had a special place in your heart for the Halo game, so that's why I thought maybe you had written something about it. Just as like a unique experience
No,
compared to the other ones?
no, I've never written about this.
Mm.
That's yeah. I don't. I've never actually written about any Halo game. Interestingly enough,
Mm.
but I have written about every Stalker game. What's up with that? Um, yeah, no, I think this game is great. If it's very close to one in my eyes. It's certainly the most like invigorated the series felt after I thought 2 and 3 were pretty samey
Mm.
overall. I think this takes some liberties in like a positive direction. Yeah, it's great. I mean, infinite scale functions in a way that I think the highest thing I've ever rated is like a 6 or a 7, maybe.
Yeah, then I'm
Um,
definitely using the scaling correctly.
yeah, I think like Half Life 2 was like a 7 or something,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was like the highest I'd ever given anything.
Okay, so what I actually want to give it is like a 2 or something, right? 2
Exactly.
or 3?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think for me this would be a 4 probably.
Mm,
I really
okay.
like it. It's a great
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
Um,
We just expect people to know what the infinite scale is from the one time that we ever talked about it.
exactly.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
also the name of the show, which means I'm forcing everyone to acknowledge its existence. Um, yeah, I I think as we go on, these games become less interesting to talk about, which means we'll have to find a new and interesting way, like a new format or something next time, because
Mhm.
Reach.
You say that, but somehow I feel like this is the most that we've had things to say of all of the ones that we've done, or did we I mean, did we really seem that much more interested in the other ones? Do you feel like?
I think we went on the most tangents here, which is a
Oh, okay.
symptom of our boredom, but I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Maybe I interpret that a little bit differently.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's inspiring creative thought, making you think
That's
about all
true.
the different types of ghosts
That's
and
true.
insects and the meaning of life.
Um Reach is maybe my least favorite.
Mm. It ends up as my favorite one.
If that is true, you are a sick individual. Um,
I'm so curious now.
yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
Hmm.
I would like to play it again because I've only ever played it through once, and I did not like it.
Is it longer than this? Or does it feel
Yes,
longer? Hmm. Okay.
it is longer. I don't know if it feels that much longer. I mean, this game felt pretty short. What was this like? Maybe 5 6 hours, maybe. We beat it in
Yeah.
like 2 sittings. I remember.
Yeah, we did. We really mainlined it though, I feel
Yeah,
like both of those sittings were decently long.
yeah. Maybe it was closer to 8. I really don't know. I don't know. We can. That's another thing about this game that I really like. It does not outstay its welcome, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean the levels that are like super long, like the that like kind of platformy level I think is too long. I fall into a mindset sometimes where I think that like this is kind of why I felt the way I did about it maybe being better as like DLC is that if something is like just not good quality and it's like long and feels like padding, I'd kind of much rather it not be there
Yeah,
than be there for me to just like regard as too overly long. I know that
yeah.
that's probably hard to distinguish when you're developing a game. Um, but post playing it, like that whole level, I they could have maybe cut in half, or maybe had that connect onto one of the other levels. Just be like the ending of something else. I don't know. I don't think it overstayed its welcome. It.
How long to beat says on average is 6.5 hours in length.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
I wonder how that compares with the other ones.
I mean, we could find out. Um, Halo 3 is 8 hours. Reach
Hmm.
is 8 hours. 4 is 7.5. 5 is 8. So far, Combat Evolved is maybe the longest at 10 hours.
5 of the hours of the library.
Now, 5 of the hours are what's that mission where you run in that fucking circle forever?
Oh, that's what I meant, not the library. What's that called?
I don't
Uh,
remember.
I thought it was the library.
Tune in
Um,
for Co-op Compatriots revisits Halo 1. Because what did we play it? It was like 4 years ago, wasn't it? Was that
yeah, that
four or
sounds
five
right.
years ago?
Yeah, was it like 20? I thought it was like 2016 or 2017.
Now I have to go back and look. Yeah, man. Tune
Hmm.
in.
And we
We're gonna
played
have
those
to.
together in person too.
Yeah, we did. We're gonna have to start playing through them all again because it's been long enough now.
Oh my god.
Now I'm really
What
wondering.
a
I know
that's what my personal hell is, honestly.
that would be crazy.
Oh god. What a horrible idea.
We're gonna continue. We'll do all these. We'll go through all of these again, and when we after we're done stack ranking them, or not through all of these again, we'll go through all of them, stack rank them, and then we have to play the best one again to make sure it's the best.
Did we only do an episode about Dark Souls 3?
We didn't do an episode about any Dark Souls.
We have. We recorded something about Dark Souls, didn't we? Is that not true? Am I really making that up? I feel like we have for one
I don't
game.
know. I have no
Oh,
idea.
okay. Huh. Maybe not.
I don't remember. Maybe it never made it to print. That one died. That one died in the editing room.
That would make sense. I remember drinking significantly while recording that one.
We did have to record Halo 2 twice, I remember, because we got really drunk for one and it was like completely incomprehensible.
You're remembering those ones being more into the game itself.
Yeah, maybe. That's so funny. All right. Well, now that we've established that Sean has no taste,
Oh my god.
we can move on. Thanks as always, everyone, for joining us on this journey.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to see Reach, so you can like it and I can hate you as a person. Um, I might like it actually. I don't know. Maybe I'll like it. I have no idea. I haven't played it in so long.
I completely forgot that we recorded about Halo 3.
Yeah, that's to me that episode was like pretty. I think we were pretty like uninterested in that game in my memory. But,
And it's set up as like the most epic of all of them too, I feel like.
and as a kid, it was definitely my favorite.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of that had to do with, I guess, I don't know what, like the multiplayer. I guess that was kind of the whole reason why that's the one that everyone remembers.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
all right, buddy. Good chatting. We'll be back.
Yeah. See you next time.
See you next time we're back.